Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, here with a full season recap of Big Brother 27. I recap the show in live time, so I've stitched together my recaps from the whole season to make it easier for you to get the whole story in one piece. The opinions expressed through the video are my opinions at the time that the episode originally aired, so you'll be able to hear my lifetime thoughts as the season goes on. If you like the content, consider liking, subscribing, and using my link to try Paramount Plus for free, but let's dive into it, starting with the premiere. Julie is wearing a Grecian summer dress with an igloo peekaboo for that leg and a flirty shoulder out. Two Wilma Flintstone necklaces on her wrist. Julie's stylist is not the hardest working person in Hollywood, but they ate with this. Julie introduces us to Hotel Mystère and teases that there will be a maniacal mastermind, a secret accomplice, so many mysteries at Hotel Mystère. We meet our first 8 house guests. Farm girl and web designer Kelly shows us big ol' farm. She's a pilot who flies everywhere she wants. She is like Amelia Earhart, but located. Ex-baseball player and pastor's kid Zach is extremely flirty with his bat. There's a wild close-up on his crotch coming out of the shower. Was this directed by Ryan Murphy? Lawyer Ashley calls herself the Black Elle Woods. She says a man will be her biggest weakness in the game. Case closed. Riley is a professional bull rider. They show a lot of clips of him getting his butt whipped by that bull. He says Jesse was his favorite growing up. No comment. Insurance agent Amy is feeling herself walking around outside. She's a mom and a mamacita for 3 kids. She promises us that she's going to blow up on somebody. Okay, Amy. Carpenter Adrian shows us his home where he has a box of clocks and a bug collection. He's been practicing with a super legit wall comp in his backyard. Bridal stylist Lauren wants to open up her own design company. She's gonna hide that she's a super fan and wants to date a gentle giant. Cut to gentle giant himself, Keanu, who proves he's a nerd when he gets into Brittany, you are up next, wizard drag, and does a little voice. After some ominous word vomit from Julie, Zach, Amy, Adrian, and Kelly enter. Zach is first in, if you care. They explore the house, and we see there's a ticking time bomb. Amy is gooning over everything in the house, which overwhelms Kelly. Superfan Adrian, who was all about himself in preseason interviews, is still being all about himself in the diary room, but he's playing it cool in the house so far, as the other 4 players join them in the house. Zach tells us his boss said before he left, no simping over women, but he's simping over Lauren. Sorry, boss. Let's meet the other 8 players. Fine dining server and self-described raging feminist Catherine does a little kick. She's single and happy to stay that way. She shares that she lived between her parents growing up and basically raised herself, which makes her tough. Unemployed Vince has a better life than employed people. He spends his time juggling machetes. Life is but a dream. Event curator Mickey has a great day recording all of this, you can tell. First, she's strutting in the city, then she's riding a horse. She ate every part of this up. Jimmy used to work for the federal government. Now he works in AI and is ready to manipulate everyone. He's just gonna tell everyone he's a tennis coach. He looks up to Frankie Grande. Morgan is a competitive gamer and former D1 track athlete. She zooms away. Zay grew up in the Mormon church, but he left the church. He's an ex-competitive cheerleader. Don't worry, they make sure to objectify him. Will loves being 50. He's a college sports podcaster. He goes by Captain Will from his army days where he met his wife. They're cute. Ava shows us her aura portraits. Her art looks really good. She loves this hat. There's no part of this where she's not wearing that hat. I can't believe people are accusing her of being a bully with this hat. It's funny. So we get to the stage. Ava is wearing her hat, don't worry. Mickey, Zay, Catherine, and Jimmy are the next 4 to move in. Jimmy is loving Amy's vibes right away. She makes him feel at home. The other 4 join them, with all 16 finally in the house. Mickey is attracted to Keanu and Riley. She steals Riley's hat. Nothing says I own this man like taking his hat. Keanu and Zay love each other's bodies, platonically. They're having a bromance. And Morgan is telling the others that she's just a model, not a gamer athlete. The bomb timer is still ticking down, and Julie points out the HOH relic that's on the table and artwork around the house. All very mysterious. As the lights go out, the HOH relic disappears. Where did it go? That was a crazy effect. And Julie is gone, leaving only her shoe behind. Has she been murdered?
She better not have!
The mastermind comes on screen. He talks like Jigsaw. He has kidnapped Julie and the relic, and they have to solve the clues to find Julie. Julie calls them and hurriedly tells them to split into 2 teams to find Julie and the relic. First is Team Julie. They'll have to build a puzzle bridge to race across a lava pit and listen to messages at each of the 8 doors. The messages are about what Julie was wearing tonight. One of the doors is telling the truth. The other 7 are lying. If they open the door that's a lie, they're eliminated from the competition. I would win this. They get started. We have Adrian, Zach, Mickey, Ava, Riley, Vince, Amy, and Lauren. Riley and Mickey are throwing the challenge, and Adrian copies Zach's work. Adrian even passes Zach, but Zach ends up getting it right. Julie is wearing those bracelets. Zach gets a big hug from Julie. By Julie's standards, she jumped Zach's bones. I loved Zach clowning on Julie as she did her up next spiel. It's refreshing to see Julie go in the house and have fun with the players. More of that, please. The other 8 house guests, Jimmy, Kelly, Will, Keanu, Catherine, Morgan, Ashley, and Zay, have to solve clues to find the right relic. If they choose the wrong relic, they'll fall through a trapdoor. So they're all just meandering around looking for clues. lose. Morgan is throwing, but everyone seems very confused. Keanu quickly picks up a relic and is sent to his death. Rest in peace, Keanu, Kelly, Zay, Will, Morgan, Catherine. And with that, we're down to our final 10 house guests. Just kidding, they're all still alive. Jimmy finds the right relic and wins the competition, so the day is saved. Later, Julie lets them know that Zach won $10,000 for saving her. Jimmy restored the power of HOH, and his reward is that only 4 people will be playing in the HOH competition, and he gets to pick who plays. He can even pick himself. So they get to strategizing. Jimmy wants to play and is looking for 3 other picks, with not a lot of the other players wanting to play. Actually, pretty much nobody wants to do it. Zay, Adrian, Keanu, Ashley, and Vince are down. Vince promises Jimmy safety, but hints to us that he may not honor it. Jimmy picks himself, Adrian, Ashley, and Vince to compete, so they head to the HOH comp called Destroy the Layer. They have to balance weighted cores on their BB blaster, then detonate it to blow that layer the hell up. So they get started, everyone seems to be trying. Several players don't want Vince to win. It felt very obvious to me that Vince was going to win this, and he does. So Vince becomes the first HOH of the summer, and they casually obliterate the layer, which seemed like a really dramatic escalation in response to Julie's brief kidnapping. After the competition, Julie's back with more BS for them. I bet they're sick of her already. She lets them know that the AI arena is now a permanent part of the game called BB Blockbuster, so Vince will nominate 3 players and they'll be fighting for safety from the vote on eviction night. Julie's feed is interrupted by the mastermind. This guy's still at it, even with no layer. No layer, don't care. He introduces their new roommate, the Rachel Riley. Rachel shouts, "Floaters grab the life vests" at the top of the stairs. The other players are eating her up, chanting her name. I love Rachel. BB13 was such a fun season to watch live. I even named my frog Rachel Riley. Rest in peace, Rachel Riley. The frog. You were a good frog until you jumped into the sink. And another message from the freaking mastermind announcing that Rachel is officially in the game, but she's not the 17th house guest. One of them is the mastermind's accomplice. The accomplice had tasks to help them turn out the lights and let Rachel in. So the whole time, this accomplice has been doing stuff, allegedly. If the majority of them can guess who the accomplice is eliminated. If they go undetected, they'll become a real house guest. Following the mastermind's announcement, players have to hunt down the mastermind's accomplice. Ava's worried about what the accomplice can do to her precious hat. I'm not worried about it. Rachel is ready to put her traitor hunting experience to the test. They're all throwing out names. Will, Ava, Zay, Riley, and Keanu are all quick suspects for their general odd behavior over the last couple of hours. I thought they were going to be strategizing about this all episode, but they're giving their guesses right away, splitting votes between Riley and Zay. Lauren and Mickey speculate that they think it was a woman, based on Rachel, another woman, joining the game, making the numbers uneven. Lauren seems the most adamant that it's a woman. It seems like they can just vote whenever they feel confident. In the end, there were 5 votes for Zay and 11 votes for Riley, making Riley their official guess, but Riley wasn't the accomplice, so they're told that they failed, and the accomplice officially joins the game. The other players won't find out who the accomplice was, and the mastermind says he'll be back. This all was great for Riley. He's been cleared. Everyone else remains a suspect, besides Rachel, but they should stop caring about this. But the show flashes back, revealing that Amy was the accomplice the whole time. When they entered, she set off the timer by pressing a button under the stairs that would eventually kill the lights. When the lights were out, she clicked a remote that flipped the relic, and she pulled a lever in the upstairs hallway to open Rachel's secret passageway. Shout out to the sleuths of Twitter for somehow figuring out that Amy was the accomplice. That's what happens when the Love Island fans find Big Brother. The players finally introduce themselves. Rachel is still married to Brendan, and now they have 2 kids. Jimmy is over Rachel. He thinks that she's had her chance and she needs to go home soon. Keanu loves that Adrian is a nerd like him. When Adrian says he raises praying mantises, manti? Mentis? Memesita? Zach tells the group that he's an ex-pro baseball player. Ava says Zay has a light blue aura, so he's a smooth-talking competitor. Ashley lies about her career as a lawyer, saying she's a marketer. Morgan also is not a gamer. She's a model. They and Lauren all say they're single, which gets the men salivating. Rachel thinks that these players are all cute, but she sees the other players as her victims already. Vince reads a message from Hotel Mystere Management. They've run out of beds, and Rachel has to live in the have-not room, eat slop, take cold showers. As consolation for this inconvenience, the hotel is offering Rachel and the other 3 have-nots safety for the week. Jimmy gets annoyed again with Rachel as this announcement is being read. To decide the other 3 have-nots, Rachel gets to pick the first one, then the person she picks the next person, and so on. Rachel asks who wants to be it, and she claims she sees Will put his hand up first, so she picks Will. Will saves Zach because they both like sports, and Zach picks Ava because she looks sad when he's picking. Ava is dressed like the Queen's Guard in Diary Room. So Rachel, Ava, Zach, and Will be safe this week. Good for them. And they have to sleep in their own crime scene. Ava says the beds remind her of her boyfriend. Jimmy continues his warpath against Rachel, telling Mickey and Morgan that they've been served Rachel Rachel on a silver platter. He's pushing the anti-Rachel agenda on them, but Morgan doesn't want to hear it. Morgan wants to team up with Rachel to learn from her. Have-nots Will and Rachel start off on rocky footing when he tells her his favorite player is Dan, which annoys her, but she doesn't really care. Rachel sharing with the group that she's still with Brendan inspires Zach that he can also find a wife and baby mama in the house. This is Rachel's first time playing without Brendan, so Rachel sees it as her time to shine and show what she's made of. Zach is called to the diary room, getting a clue that not only does he get the $10,000, but he can use the $10,000 to buy his safety. If at any point before jury he's on the block after the veto, he can use the $10,000 to buy his way off the block, giving his $10,000 to the HOH. If he doesn't use this power, he gets to keep the money. This is a great fun twist. It gives him the chance to pass his target to a different player. This was such a better reward than Jimmy's. Later, Jimmy syncs up in the bathroom with Morgan and Mickey. Their trio becomes a little alliance. They name themselves Triple Threat. Jimmy tells them he could influence Vince's nominations this week. They get Vince's HOH room with a hidden bathroom, which will become very important. Vince says this room is better than living at home in his childhood bedroom. Amy loves Rachel. They're bonding and form a mom's alliance, the Mom Squad, knowing that they need to pit the younger players against each other and make them horny for each other. They pinky swear to lock in the Mom Squad. I love the Mom Squad. Vince is trying to rest in his new room, but Ashley wants to use his shower. She treats herself to a shower fit for a queen. The other players say she's been in the shower for an hour and a half, which feels like an exaggeration. Triple Threat is really leading the charge against Ashley and her shower, but when Ashley returns from the bathroom, Catherine is heated about it, and Kelly retells the story about the shower the next day. Amy is so annoyed about the gossip about the shower, she tells Ashley all about it. Ashley is ready to squash this. She starts with Catherine, who denies being annoyed about it. This conversation is tense and starting an early rivalry between these two. One of the two of them is extremely clean. The jocks are working out in front of everyone. Will is letting them make targets of themselves, while he bonds with the women on the sidelines. Vince is holding his one-on-one meetings ahead of nominations. He consults Jimmy. They start with considering targeting the suspects from the accomplice. They'd agreed that the HOH players, them, Ashley, and Adrian, would keep each other safe. Jimmy says the best target would be Zay, but Zay walks in and breaks the chat up. Vince also wants to work with his new friend Kelly. Kelly sees him as their final two, so Kelly decides to make a big move and ask Vince to nominate her to keep their alliance a secret. I actually laughed out loud when she asked him to nominate her. That was very silly, Kelly. Vince meets with Zay, who he's leaning towards nominating. Zay suggests he nominates Ashley for Showergate, but Vince made that deal with Ashley. But player after player bring up Ashley's name, and Zach tells Ashley that there's a campaign to get her nominated. After being warned at this point twice, Ashley continues to come to Vince's room multiple times asking for a one-on-one, acting a bit impatient and annoying Vince. She finally gets this one-on-one, telling Vince that Zach had warned her. Vince tells Ashley that nobody's bringing up the shower and her name, lie, and tells her that she's being paranoid. He gaslights her through this whole conversation. When Vince tells Amy that he's targeting Zay and Ashley, Amy defends her friend Ashley, saying it was just a shower, getting emotional, crying, saying if Ashley goes home, she wants to go home too. This makes him consider nominating Amy with Ashley. So we get to the nomination ceremony where Rachel is for some reason dressed like a leprechaun. Vince nominates Zay, Amy, and Ashley, going out of his way to say Ashley isn't nominated because of the shower, but because she says one thing and does another, and is the most paranoid person in the house. Ashley tells us Vinny's words don't mean jack poop, and she can't wait to target him. Vince adjourns his nomination ceremony. Ashley is annoyed, calling Vince a liar. He did lie to her. Zay seems cool with it, and Amy is crying. Ashley confronts Vince in the HOH room, asking for an explanation. He continues to gaslight her, saying she was paranoid. She's hurt by him and breaks down as she confirms that he looks like an idiot, and that if she wins HOH next week, he's going up on the block. He offers to use the veto on her if he wins it to regain her trust, but he tells us that he's lying to her to make her feel better. Ashley diaries that Vince is a crock of shit and is blah blah blah, that she never should have trusted him with his stinky mustache. Vince moves on to Amy, who tells him that he made a bad move. Amy tells us Vince is a weenie. Rachel consoles Amy. She sees herself in Amy and tells us that if she can win the veto, she's saving her. Lauren and Zach are flirting on the couch. He's asking 100 questions about her dating history. Zach's boss is going to be face palming, seeing him goon over this girl in his pink bandana. Lauren tells us she's going to try to keep it just friends. Okay, we'll see. Rachel gets Riley to admit that he has a crush on Catherine. Rachel's working full time to get the juices flowing in here and get these kids distracted. Nominee Zay continues to be cool. He's trying to work with Weenie HOH Vince, which makes Vince lock in on Ashley as a target. In the bathroom, Ava is relishing in her slop body, sharing that everyone in her family has a big old booty. Okay, Ava. Adrian is on the show, fighting with the laundry machine. The music gets tense and horrific anytime the machine starts beeping. I asked myself, are these 90-minute episodes necessary? Well, yes, this was funny. Inside, Keanu shares with Rachel that his father has cancer in his spine. That's his inspiration, in a really touching moment that humanizes him to Rachel. Jimmy's also warming up to Rachel. He's starting to see her as an asset that he can use to benefit himself, so he's easing off targeting her and starts bonding with her. She tells him that nobody's going to vote for her in the end, so they should take her to the end and win. Jimmy and Rachel decide to start building a coalition. Jimmy brings in Zach, Morgan, Riley, and Vince. They name this alliance the Heavy Hitters. Rachel tells us she hates this alliance, especially because Amy isn't in it, and it's not a real alliance. Jimmy goes to Riley after this meeting to even tell him he's in the alliance and the name of it. Ava is annoyed with Keanu. He's following her all around the house. Where she goes, he follows. He pops up and startles her. She shares her annoyance with her buddy Will. Zach is torn. His bro Zay is on the block, but Zay isn't in his new alliance. He doesn't want to have to decide what to do with the veto if he wins it. When it's time to pick players for the veto, Ashley's taking another long shower. Comedically, everyone has to wait for her again. The show really set Ashley up for this. They knew she was in the shower. They pick players. Amy gets house guest choice and picks Rachel, and Zach's nightmare comes true and he's picked as well. Vince meets with Zach and Rachel, telling them he doesn't want the veto used, but they both are already saying they'll use it if they win. Ashley encourages Zach to throw the veto so he can avoid that tough decision. They head to the backyard for the veto competition. Felony Forest. Felony Forest stinks. The players are dressed as park rangers. They need to visit 3 stations to find a footprint, tire track, and smell that matches each crime. The player who figures out the 3 criminals first will win the veto. So they get started inspecting and sniffing the crime scene. This competition was too complicated. They think we care about the criminal profiles. Rachel smushes her nose into a beaker. She's sniffing and sniffing. She could sniff the paint off a car with this technique. Zach says everything smells like booty cheeks. Cheeks? All you need to know about this comp is the smells were smelly, and Ashley cracks the case and wins the POV. Vince is annoyed that he has to name a 4th nominee. He reminds his bestie Kelly that she offered to be nominated to hide their alliance. He gets upset about this, and she consoles him for considering nominating her. She's still cool with it and ready to win the blockbuster comp on Thursday. Jimmy sees Vince's HOH as his own. He's trying to get Vince to nominate Keanu so they can eliminate a bro. Jimmy canvasses the house with his idea, floating Keanu's name as a target. Rachel, who is dressed like a gambler from Guys and Dolls, is not happy to hear Keanu is a target. She tells Keanu that Vince is coming for him, even though it was really Jimmy spreading this. Keanu confronts Vince, but Vince denies it. Vince knows this all goes back to Jimmy. So now Vince is annoyed with Jimmy and is saying that he's considering nominating Jimmy, but we all know that Vince is a weenie, so we'll see what he does. In the backyard, Keanu and Jimmy have a tense conversation where Keanu is subtly threatening Jimmy, saying he'll come for anyone who comes for him, but Jimmy is more focused on cosplaying as Stregonona, and Jimmy thinks they had a great conversation. Later, Keanu pitches to Kelly and Vince to nominate Jimmy, but Kelly is still pretty cool with going on the block. Keanu confides in Ava that Jimmy is a sketchy snake. Ava sees this as a way to start some trouble in the house, so she runs this right back to Jimmy. When Vince confirms Keanu's plotting to Jimmy, Jimmy is activated, which brings us to the veto meeting. At the meeting, Ashley uses the veto on herself, and Vince nominates Kelly in her place. Just when we think it's over, Jimmy stands up and calls Keanu out in front of the house. Jimmy says the only thing fake about me are these goddamn sunglasses. This was such a rehearsed meltdown, but it did make a good moment in the edited show. Keanu is not impressed with Jimmy's acting. Julie's wearing a sundress right out of Romeo and Juliet. Wherefore art thou less? Why does this dress have buttons all down the front? Her hair looks like a bridesmaid, waking up the day after the wedding, wondering what happened. We pick back up after Jimmy's blow up in the POV meeting. Jimmy storms away, but everyone seems pretty unaffected. Amy once again calls Vince a weenie for making a weenie move and nominating Kelly. We learn that before the veto ceremony, Jimmy came to Rachel, asking her if he should pop off on Keanu. Rachel thinks it's a terrible idea, so she encourages him to do it. Back to the present, Keanu is trying to figure out why Jimmy yelled at him. They chat outside, and they unpack that Jimmy was targeting Keanu. Keanu found out and was coming for Jimmy in return, but they find some peace and hug it out. Jimmy still wants Keanu out. What a waste of everyone's time. Besties Kelly and Vince meet up. Vince wants Amy out because she's Rachel's ally. In the HOH room, Zay, Riley, Will, Vince, and Zach have a great idea, an all-guys alliance. No one's thought of that before. They named their alliance the Burger Boys because Zay describes himself as caked up with buns. Kelly has been bothering everyone in the house with her bad jokes and awkward direct comments, with a whole montage of her odd behavior. Jimmy hints about this to Kelly, and she breaks down under the pressure of being on the block. Vince is hoping Kelly doesn't go home. That would be a waste of his HOH, and make him look like Boo Boo the Fool, or Boo Boo the Weenie. Oh lord, the mastermind is back. He creeps around the house while the players are sleeping, watching them in bed, and he caresses Big Brother's safe. This will definitely be important in a future competition. Rachel is giving herself 2 missions, to save Amy and target Zay. She starts by rounding up Morgan, who completely agrees with both. Morgan brings in Mickey and Will. Will isn't sure about voting out his caked up burger boy, but Mickey is down. She feels like Zay is strong and smart. He's a chess master and speaks Spanish, so that's enough to get most of the girls on side to vote him out. God forbid someone plays board games and speaks Spanish. They fast forward right to Wednesday night, skipping over all the lead up to this conversation, but Zay tells Rachel that if he stays, he'll nominate people who voted for him, including her. She tells him, I'd be careful coming for the queen. You will get beheaded. This gets right under Zay's skin. He's turning red and stammering. He announces over the balcony that as long as he's there, there's no way she'll win again. I get that this is a short show, but I'm so disappointed in the editing of this fight. It was so good on the feeds and lasted such a long time. But we move on to the blockbuster competition, where 4 words will appear on the screens, jumbled up like a ransom note, and will be slowly unscrambling. They need to decipher the phrase that will lead to an item they need to buzz in with. They get started meandering around. This was so hard to play along with, and also not fun to watch. Kelly picks up a crown, buzzes in, and she's right, saving herself from the vote, leaving Zay and Amy as the final nominees for the week. Back in the house, Keanu and Zach are holding hands for Zay, which makes it more hilarious when they find out that Kelly won and is saved. Kelly gets so emotional as they cheer for her and chant her name. It's nice that she gets this moment. After preseason, she said she was excited to make friends in the Big Brother house, but everyone's scrambling. They're all stressed knowing this is about to be a split vote. They don't have that much time. It's quickly time to vote. But first, speeches. Amy pitches that Zay is smarter and stronger than her. Zay argues that they should keep him because he's a good competitor and they're there to compete, and that Amy's a second vote for Rachel. Zay's speech kind of sucked. The only good part of it was Rachel's death glare through the entire thing. The players vote. Votes to evict Amy are Kelly, Zach, Adrian, Keanu, and Will. And to evict Zay, Rachel, Jimmy, Riley, Morgan, Ashley, Mickey, Ava, Catherine, and Lauren. Adrian says Julie looks Pontchartraneous. What the hell is Pontchartraneous? Julie reveals that by a vote of 5 to 9, Zay is evicted. Zach is so torn up over this. He's crashing out like Huda. He's not dead, Zach. Rachel doesn't say goodbye or join the group hug. She stands idly by. Rachel is so iconic. In his interview, Zay says, that's just how the cookie crumbles. It's hard to take this interview seriously, knowing that that chair is gonna smell like booty cheeks. Julie has a new big reveal, telling everyone who's evicted that Amy was the accomplice, and of course, getting no big reaction. Zay is not shocked. This interview was so quick and vanilla. She didn't even ask him about the fight with Rachel. So we have to say goodbye to Zay here, who obviously I'm not a fan of. I ranked him 14th preseason. He comes in and is instantly seen as sketchy by the group. We don't even really see why, so I guess it's just his demeanor, bad first impression. He got the second most votes for the accomplice, which led to his nomination by Vince. He only really got along well with the men, hanging around with the guys, working out, and neglecting his relationships with the women. If this cast were all men, he would have great social game. Zach was obsessed with him. He wasn't playing terribly, he had some decent strategies, and he almost had the votes to stay. Rachel knew this, and she orchestrated this whole fight that made him look like a fool the night before the eviction. I do think that fight cost him the swing votes he needed, and he falls here in 17th place. I'm happy we don't have to see the reality where he stays, wins HOH, and nominates 3 women, and while I wouldn't be surprised to see him on the challenge honestly soon, I can really do without it for an eternity. Following Zay's eviction, Zach is crashing out in the DR, saying he lost his brother in the game. Boo hoo hoo. Rachel is satisfied having beheaded her rival. That's what happens when you mess with the queen. Kelly celebrates by herself in the boxing ring. She's jazzing over this and she's motivated to target Rachel. In the bathroom, Keanu and Riley console each other, but Riley voted to keep Amy, going against the boys to save his own ass. He sounds miserable in the DR talking about this. While he feels guilty about it, Riley commits himself to protecting the girls. Rachel is thrilled. This leads to confusion about the votes. The 5 votes to evict Amy are Kelly, Keanu, Zach, Adrian, and Will. Will tells Keanu that someone is lying about their vote. Riley is lying to Keanu, but Keanu thinks that Will is the one lying. Will finds out that Keanu is calling him a liar, and Will is pissed. Adrian calms Will down, but at this point, the guys plus Kelly alliance is in disarray. Alarms go off in the house. Hotel Mystere has been robbed. In the HOH competition, players need to search for the HOH key and 3 mystery powers in the pitch black BB sewers. Players need to find the corresponding shapes of the key or the powers and bring them back to the dumbwaiter to claim them. Previous HOH Vince can play in this, but only for powers. I love how this challenge looks. There's a lot going on in a small space, and I like that they're all doing this at the same time. They get started. Ava hates this and quickly decides she's not interested in playing anymore. Keanu is the first to lock in a power and starts helping Zach to find another. Rachel picks up a power but puts it down to pick up a different piece. Jimmy locks in his HOH power, so he'll be HOH for the week. Amy is stuck in the sewers. She's a lost cause in this, but at least she's trying. Mickey wins a power and stays silent, and Jimmy knows that Kelly found the final power. Players return to the house and celebrate Jimmy's big win. Jimmy begins an investigation to find everyone that has a power. He tells everyone if they lie to him, they have a one-way ticket to Block City. But a few of them do lie to him. Some will go to Block City, some won't. Keanu learns about his power, the mystery competitor. He can invoke a former house guest to take a spot in the veto comp if he's on the block, giving him double the chances to win the veto. If the mystery player wins, he gets that veto. Kelly and Keanu confide in each other that they won powers, and when Kelly tells Jimmy that she told Keanu about hers, Jimmy knows that Kelly and Keanu are working together. More details about Kelly's power: she can choose to compete in a second veto competition after the veto meeting in a solo challenge to win another veto. Mickey confides in Morgan that she also won a power. Her power is the HOH interrogation, where where she can anonymously dethrone an HOH in an effort to steal their power. The HOH will get to interrogate the players and make a formal guess to Big Brother of who's trying to steal the power. If the HOH guesses right, they get their HOH back. If they're wrong, Mickey would successfully steal their power. Mickey and Morgan plan to keep this a secret, but Zach has already suspected that Mickey won this power. All three of these powers, and Zach's from earlier this season, expire when they reach the jury. Zach tells Jimmy that Keanu was trying to help him find an advantage in the challenge, which leads him to think that Keanu already had a power when he did that, and everyone doesn't like Keanu. They're all fine with him going on the block. They're also fine with Kelly being nominated. Since she has a power, Kelly is once again down to go on the block. For his third nominee, Jimmy wants a pawn who everyone likes, and is deciding between Adrian, Lauren, and Riley. Finally, it's time for the nomination ceremony, where Jimmy is wearing the HOH robe and kinky leather gloves. He nominates Kelly, Adrian, and Keanu. His big speech is to Keanu, calling him out for being a liar. He says Keanu's gameplay is so full of shit, the toilet is jealous. Keanu claps back by pretending to fall asleep. Keanu confesses to us that he's gonna save himself and then behead the snake Jimmy. We get opening credits with the murder mystery theme. Everyone looks so cool. Kiki's snapping his fingers. Ava's doing her big one. Rachel eats in red. We pick back up where we left off. Keanu is sleeping still after Jimmy's nomination speech. Jimmy is feeling himself after he ripped Keanu a new one, saying the toilet would be jealous of Keanu. Has anyone asked the toilet? Adrian tears up, getting emotional about being able to support his family with the money. He vows not to let his family down. This was a sweet character moment. Amy is happy to be off the block, but she's worried that Jimmy will make a weenie move and nominate her again because, as Amy says again, Jimmy is a weenie. In the storage room, Rachel confronts Keanu. Keanu is claiming he voted for Amy to stay. Rachel knows he's lying. She also asks him if he won a power. More lies from Keanu. Rachel has had it. She's staring him down. These two do this all the time. Ava is pumping iron in the gym, comedically giving the absolute least. Ava is such a vibe. Kelly starts sharing details about her power with the other players, that she can play in a second veto competition by herself after the veto meeting. She's considering using it this week to save herself. Keanu has only told Kelly and now Vince that he can invoke a previous player to play in the veto to double his chances at the veto. Rachel is showing off her outfits. Jimmy shades her for having hit or miss fashion choices, which is true. They go back and forth with shady insults, but Rachel likes Jimmy, and she enjoys fighting with him. They have a cute little friendship for now. Will is dealing with an injury, and he shares with the group his experience in the military. He did it to take care of his family, and now his daughter's in the military. It was nice seeing this, and the diary rooms in these segments seemed more real than usual, which I appreciate. Lauren and Catherine are bonding, as they do all the time. They graduate their friendship to an alliance. Catherine worries that Lauren is more liked than her, but Catherine girly, get out of bed and shake some hands. It's time to pick players for the veto competition. Keanu quickly pipes up. There's always some drama at the ceremonies on the Keanu and Jimmy show. Keanu invokes his mystery competitor power, and of course Jimmy and Keanu have a fight where Jimmy tells Keanu to sit his ass on the nomination chair where he belongs. Keanu says he's gonna pick off everyone one by one. Ava's picked to join Jimmy, the nominees, and the mystery player in the veto competition. After the picks, Ashley is pissed at Keanu, calling him out in the kitchen for saying he's coming for everyone, including saying Keanu sounded like the Wicked Witch of the West. I'm gonna pick you all off one by one, she says. Rachel is happy that everyone's fighting and taking the attention away from there being a Big Brother winner in the house. Players head to the backyard dressed as plants. I love these costumes. They announce the mystery player is Big Brother winner Casey, who looks so funny as a plant. It's wild to see Casey in the diary room after all this time, but between Casey and the diary room couch, there's too much furniture in the room. House guests will use their disguises to creep on Big Brother 25's Felicia, my favorite house guest of all time. They have to hold their hands on the buttons behind them, and when Felicia says creeper, they have to run for their buttons on the other side. Each round, the slowest runner is eliminated. If they let go of their buttons before Felicia says creeper, it's a false start and they're eliminated. Felicia's having a ball doing her skit, avoiding saying creeper by saying crap, critter, crawler, and she had a crawler in her pocket. Give Felicia an Emmy for this performance, honestly. In the first round, Kelly's eliminated with a horrible skittering technique. You must hop. Ava's eliminated second. At least she hopped. Jimmy slips off his button and is eliminated, followed by Keanu with a false start as well. So it comes down between Casey and Adrian in the final round, where Felicia gives Mr. B a grocery list. Take me back. It comes down to a hop off, and Casey beats Adrian. They say it's way too close to call and go to an instant replay. It wasn't close at all. So Casey wins another veto in a challenge that was designed for her. They scream, let's go. Don't take me back. Don't take me back. That veto now belongs to Keanu, and Casey goes back home to non-house guest life. Players strategize, especially Jimmy, who may have to nominate 2 replacements. He's considering Amy and Will, but now Rachel is saying this is a weenie move and a waste of an HOH. Rachel warns Amy, and Amy says she's basically not even gonna try to ask Jimmy not to nominate her because she doesn't want to kiss his ass, and she calls Jimmy a weenie, which he is kind of being, but I also think not asking the HOH to not nominate you is a weenie move too. Jimmy fills Mickey in on his renominations plan. She feels like he's being a bad ally for making these weak nominations without consulting the team. She fills Morgan in. They're both pissed and don't feel like their alliance is even real. They're glad they didn't tell Jimmy about Mickey's power. Keanu decides to bond with Rachel and mend their relationship, they chat for a few minutes before Keanu tells Rachel that he loves watching clips from her season of Reagan and Hayden insulting her. She's rightfully annoyed that he's only pointing out her worst moments, where people are being mean to her, and she storms off. He follows her into the kitchen, where Rachel tells him off and declares war on Keanu. At the veto meeting, Keanu uses the veto on himself. Shockingly, there's no argument between he and Jimmy here, and Jimmy nominates Amy in his place. Kelly then chimes in to activate her mystery veto power. She'll play in her challenge later that day. In the meantime, Keanu tries to make nice with Jimmy, who hates him, and asks Jimmy to nominate his friend Rachel. Keanu is a mess. The show makes it seem like Jimmy considered this, but he didn't, let's be for real. He was really considering nominating Riley instead of Will. This was weird editing. It's time for Kelly's challenge. She has 2 minutes to complete such an easy puzzle. They even put the bottom piece right at the top of the stack. So Kelly gets started, cheering herself on. She gets confused when she has only 1 piece left, which is crazy, but she completes this with 30 seconds to spare, winning the second veto and saving herself from the block for the second week in a row. Jimmy has to replace her with his 5th nomination of the week. He decides to go through and nominate Will, which adjourns the veto proceedings for the week. Julie's wearing a sad, matronly, wrinkly beige dress. Beige, beige, beige. This very boring outfit is spiced up with a dinosaur tooth around her neck. Back in the house, we pick back up where we left off. Kelly used her second veto, and Jimmy nominated Will. Will calls this nomination a bitch-ass move from Jimmy. Jimmy's pretending to cry and make everyone feel bad for him. It doesn't seem to be working. While the powers were used, Adrian says he has the greatest power of all, his own mind. He has the support of Zach to stay in the house. In the backyard, Morgan and Mickey continue to stew about Jimmy being a bad ally, and when he approaches them, they don't want to talk to him. They sit in silence. Will is struggling to find common ground with the younger players. He doesn't like talking about TikTok videos and farting, but he bonds with fellow nominee Amy. Catherine and Lauren agree they want Amy out. Lauren feels like there are 2 sides in the house. There's most of the women and Jimmy, and most of the men with Kelly. She's closer to more of the guys, so she leans more towards that side and wants to vote Amy out to keep the sides at war. Kelly and Vince are still allied. They're watching Rachel to see how she handles Amy's nomination. Julie gets flirty with her blocking. Walking down the stairs, she pursued journalism but dreamed of dance. Back in the house, Mickey and Morgan definitely want to keep Will, even over Amy, and they campaign for Will around the house, but Adrian also has a lot of support from the guys. Ashley tips Rachel off that Amy's probably going home, and Rachel does go on a campaign trail, trying to save Amy, telling everyone that she's dressed for a funeral. Rachel's funeral attire is a hat with veil halo, a black bikini, and sheer see-through dress. She tries to save Amy, but her campaign doesn't seem to be working. We get to the blockbuster competition, where King Adrian is wearing his glasses. Nothing says I'm locked in like finally being able to see. Players will race to complete a 12-piece fingerprint puzzle. The first player to complete it wins safety. They get started. Adrian's carrying multiple pieces at a time, setting himself up with a head start, but his puzzle gets messy, and for a moment it looks like Amy's gonna figure it out, but clear-seeing, self-described goated Adrian finishes first and saves himself from the block. Julie sends the nominees back to the house, where players are all wearing pink. They couldn't switch Julie into something pink. The players were planning this for days. There's a brief cheer for Adrian, but it gets sad as Rachel, Amy, and Ashley hug and say goodbye to each other. They haven't even voted yet. I wonder who's going home. But they do their speeches. Amy gets emotional, and Will is silly with Julie. He says, "Hey, Julie." Julie says, "Hey, Will." Will shouts out his wife, who he calls Chocolate Drop, and when he's done, Julie asks Will if she's his lemon drop. "Am I your lemon drop, Will?" is crazy. We get to the votes, where it's unsurprisingly unanimous to evict Amy. So by a vote of 13-0, Amy's told to hit it. Ava's especially torn up about this, and on her way out, Amy shouts, "Get Jimmy out, he's a snake and a liar." I can't tell if she's joking or being serious. In her interview, Amy feels like her alliance with Rachel held her back, and we get goodbye messages, notably one from Rachel, where she promises to cause chaos and avenge Amy's eviction, and a goodbye message from the mastermind, which was funny. So we have to say goodbye to Amy, who had a rocky road in the house. She was assigned as the accomplice, being the only person who could have gone home day one. Then she ends up on the block for the first 2 weeks. She had her alliance with Rachel, and preseason she planned to have an all-girls alliance. When she was on the block the first time, most of the women voted to keep her, but she never took the initiative to lock in that group. She should have at least tried. We saw in the episode she finds out Jimmy's considering her as a replacement, and she doesn't even try to ask him not to do it. That was when I got annoyed with her, because why not just make an attempt? Overall, she had good social game, but her lack of strategy and competition ability are major issues, and while I do find her pleasant, I think compared to the other 2 nominees, we'd seen all we were going to see from Amy, and I'm okay with her going here. We pick back up where we left off. Amy's leaving, calling Jimmy a snake and a liar on the way out. Jimmy doesn't care. He doesn't even think anyone heard Amy. Rachel is mourning her mom's squad alliance member Amy. She and Ashley voted with the house to get rid of their close friend. Adrian and Will are relieved and motivated after surviving eviction. Will says the other house guests love Pop Pop. The girls console Rachel, who's torn up and feels like she has no influence in the house, but Keanu is buzzing that Amy's gone. He celebrates with Adrian, but Adrian and the other guys still don't like Keanu for everything he's done plotting on Will. Rachel decides to start anew. She makes the final 2 with Ava. She likes Ava because she's fun, weird, and and Rachel thinks she can beat Ava. Mickey and Morgan continue to stew against Jimmy. They did hear Amy call Jimmy a snake on the way out, and they feel the same way. Jimmy can tell they're annoyed with him, and he wants to work on these relationships. They head to their HOH competition, where they find out that insane events happened outside the hotel. They're getting twin witness accounts of the events, where they'll watch the twins describe things that happened and answer true or false questions about what they saw. So the twins are Liz and Julia from Big Brother 17. They're doing this bit where they're both saying everything at the same time. That is so irritating. But Liz and Julia do a good job with the material they're given. They tell this news story where they heard their dad fell in his spotted underpants. Then they're attacked by a ninja. Liz and Julia thought quick, telling the ninja that his shoe was untied. So they distracted the ninja themselves, buying enough time to call the authorities. Vince, Ashley, Keanu, Catherine, Will, and Kelly are out in the first question. Ava's out in the second question, and everyone else besides Lauren and Mickey in the third. We get another story from the twins. This time they can hardly keep the story together. They witness a car accident. They rode in the ambulance just for fun. They claim they saved the day, but before their story is over, there's another car accident, and it's implied that it's the same driver. Lauren and Mickey face off, and Lauren gets the next question right, winning the HOH competition. I'm sure she'll be a very decisive head of household. House guests celebrate Lauren's win. Lauren tells us she's tired of being a follower. She wants to make her own decisions this week. We'll see, Lauren. Mickey worries that Catherine will convince Lauren to nominate Ashley and Mickey, and Mickey's considering using her power to steal the HOH. Vince tries to tell us that everyone thinks Lauren is impressionable, and he wants to warn her about this. Funny coming from him because he's about to try to control her whole game. So he starts telling her that the only person she should listen to is basically him, and he tells her to distance herself from her best friend Catherine. Rachel is upset that she lost the competition and didn't get her letters from home. She misses her family and feels like she's struggling to adjust to modern Big Brother after seeing such success on her original seasons in competitions. Ashley consoles her. Rachel pumps herself up in the diary room and tells herself she's about to go balls to the wall. Okay, Rachel, go balls to the wall. Vince tries to tell us he's never heard anyone call a pizza a pie. Now, Vince, you can gaslight the other house guests, but you cannot gaslight me. House pariah Keanu tries to campaign to Lauren, but she doesn't know how to handle this. She's just dissociating and staring at the TV, waiting for the conversation to be over, which is relatable. Mickey tells Lauren that the best move is to just do the same nominations as the week before, which is very boring advice. To make things easier, Kelly volunteers again to go on the block, so she's got Keanu and Kelly as nominations and is looking for her third nominee. Considering Adrian and Will, she approaches Will about being a pawn, and he's frustrated and sick of being the older person who's going on the block over and over again. He says he's mad, pissed, angry, and all the adjectives. Lauren is upset because nobody wants to volunteer and make her life easy, and she actually has to make a decision. Don't you hate when you're the HOH and have to make nominations? So we head to the nomination ceremony where Lauren stuns in pink flowers. She nominates Keanu, Kelly, and Will. Also, Mickey at this point tells us she decided not to use her mystery power this week, so I guess she has to use it at the nomination ceremony, which would carry over into a Wednesday episode. Lauren did not have to win this HOH, and the nominations were so weak, especially nominating Will. The show made it seem like Will and Lauren don't talk game, but they didn't acknowledge that Will and Lauren are in an alliance together called The Bond, so weak nominations. She sounds miserable talking about it in the diary room. Keanu is ready to save himself again. Kelly hopes volunteering will garner some good favor with Lauren, and Will says Lauren made a weak-ass move, and all these young kids are playing summer camp. Some of the girls assure Will that he'll be safe this week, but he knows he's on the block because he's not close to the other half of the house. He says his whole situation is effed. Jimmy feels good with both sides of the house. He's in triple threat with Morgan and Mickey, and he has a thing on the side with Lauren and Catherine. He supports Lauren's decisions. Lauren apologizes to Will, but all Will hears is blah blah blah. He's gonna put her ass on the block and calls her fake. On a lighter note, Ava gives her takes on who she'd date if she was single. She has Goldilocks syndrome. Zach's too clean, Adrian's too calm, but Rachel's just right. She'd hit it with her final two. Kelly tells Lauren that she looks like Charlie XCX because she's wearing a green bandana, and she thanks Lauren for nominating her. Kelly's having so much fun nominating herself over and over and feels like Lauren owes her big time for this. We're back to the saga of Rachel, Jimmy, and Rachel's ugly shirt. Rachel is still insisting that her shirt is cute. She puts it on and Jimmy laughs in her face. I hope this ugly shirt is a segment every week. Will meets with his niecey, who he loves, Ashley, and Mickey. They think Ashley might be the replacement nominee if the veto's used because Ashley's been on the block before, but they don't want that to happen. Keanu asks Adrian if he'll play to help take Keanu off the block, and Adrian pretty much rejects him. Keanu gives us a "you gotta be kidding me" look to the camera. Elsewhere, house guests clown on Ashley for not knowing who Clark Kent is. She says sorry to that man. I honestly don't think it's crazy for her not to know that. Zach is in an accidental love triangle. His friend Morgan has a crush on him, but he just laughs hysterically at her when she flirts with him. But he's really feeling Lauren as they flirt about drinks and ham it up, but Lauren allegedly doesn't want to showmance and just wants to play the game. We'll see about that, but that's also boring, which is on brand. The guys egg on Zach. Not shown is Riley making a lot of weird comments while egging Zach on. Vince tells Kelly that he'll win the veto and take her off the block, but he has way too many final twos. He pretty much has the same conversation with Keanu, and he tells Lauren that he'll win it and not use it, it, so he's made too many promises and hopes he doesn't even get picked for the veto, so you know he's about to be picked. So they go to pick players, where of course Vince's chip is drawn, and Will gets house guest choice and chooses his niecey Ashley. Ashley commits to Will that if she wins, she's taking him off that block. Meanwhile, Vince continues to reinforce his 3 promises and make his own life harder. House guests get to watch the trailer for Bad Guys 2. Why are they always promoting children's movies? Rachel does a good job pretending that she likes Bad Guys 1, which I watched too, and the title was my review. It was Bad Guys. So they head to the veto comp, where they need to help the bad guys steal the MacGuffin nut crystal from the basement of the hotel. They need to navigate a laser maze to get the MacGuffin nut and get back to the starting point. If they trigger a laser, they have to start over. The player with the fastest time will win the power of veto. Getting to the crystal, they can pretty much go under the lasers, but the crystal is so big and cumbersome that it makes them actually have to go through the lasers, which I appreciate. Ashley does a serviceable job. She's jumping lasers like Lara Croft, but don't ask her who Lara Croft is. Vince is taking his sweet time to throw the challenge. Kelly has been downgraded to being just part of a montage. Will is out there doing his army crawl, but he's a burger boy, so his caked up yacht triggers the lasers and slows down his time. Keanu's got the dog in him. I like the way he slides on the floor. Kenny Ortega's got to get this guy in a movie musical. Lauren's got a background in dance, which helps her with the lasers, but the MacGuffin nut crystal is way bigger than her. Keanu dips it low, picks it up slow, works it all around, pokes it out, and lets his back roll. He pops that thing and shows us how to make the bad guys say, "Oh, Keanu." In the end, the top 3 are Vince, Lauren, and the winner of the POV, Twinkle Toes Keanu. He gives the veto a smooch.
A little kiss. I like that.
So Lauren has to name a replacement nominee, and Ashley and Adrian both feel they're at risk because they've both been nominated before. Vince is pushing Lauren to nominate Ashley because he was the one who nominated her and is trying to clean up his own mess. Vince has Lauren convinced that nominating Ashley is a good idea, but Rachel sees Vince and Lauren getting close, and she tells Lauren that she doesn't need to be taking advice from someone who's 33 years old and unemployed. While Rachel did eviscerate Vince, she thinks that she nailed this conversation, but Lauren says in confessional that Rachel's being rude about her friend, and Rachel's trying to control her HOH while also accusing Vinny of doing the same. Mr. Wolf pulls up and tells Keanu that he could bring 3 other house guests to join him to watch Bad Guys 2. He picks Jimmy, Rachel, and Ava, so they watch the movie, blah blah blah. Back to the game, Rachel, Mickey, and Ashley organize. They plan to put the pressure on Lauren, and not shown on the episode is how much work was put in to achieve this and how indecisive Lauren really was, but they show Mickey talking to Lauren, telling Lauren that she's going to be pissing off a whole side of the house if she puts up Ashley, which has Lauren shaking in her boots. So we get to the veto meeting, where Keanu obviously uses the veto on himself, and Lauren, without much explanation or conversation, nominates Adrian, and the meeting is adjourned. This meeting is supposed to be the ultimate end of a 90-minute episode, so it being so short, especially when Lauren was making such a big decision, is insane. Will calls this a boring move, which is true. Will also vows to win the BB blockbuster and turn the house upside down, which, while entertaining, seems unlikely. Julie is dressed to match the big B on the wall. You know she means big business. Julie's wearing a green 2-piece suit with Chips Ahoy buttons, 4 bracelets that each look like watches. Who designing this outfit thought this woman needs 2 pockets in the front of her backwards corset top? A businesswoman on the go needs 2 pockets, one for my clicker to speak to the house guests, the other for my beeper to let my beloved Les know it's time to pick me up at 6:01. As Julie herself would say, she's my mint chocolate chip ice cream drop in this outfit. I'm joking, I'm joking. Back to the house, Lauren nominated Adrian. After a successful pressure campaign from Rachel, Morgan, Mickey, and Ashley, Lauren feels like she made the best move for herself. Kelly is feeling overwhelmed and emotional, feeling like she's doomed on Thursday. Her friend Vince doesn't even know if he can do anything to save her. Lauren and Catherine meet. They don't want Kelly or Adrian to go home. They're fine with Will going home because he's on the other side of the house. One side is all the girls, Jimmy and Will. The other side is the rest of the guys, Kelly, Kat, and Lauren. Will is struggling to connect with the other players. He feels like he's in a frat house and the other players are nasty as hell. He doesn't want to campaign against Adrian. He says Adrian's such a nice young man, he doesn't even curse, with the show making sure to remind us that Adrian uses terms like mother flippers. Mickey and Morgan's distrust of Jimmy leave them wanting new connections. Morgan suggests that they make a final four with Vince and Zach, but this leads Mickey to be really annoyed with Morgan for being so close to Vince and Zach, but Morgan was trying to include her, so from the edit we saw, she shouldn't be that annoyed. There's a growing appetite in the house to flip a vote against Will, with Lauren's side of the house slowly starting to flirt with the idea, but what's really important is the house is running out of bread because Adrian is on a date with the bread. He's flirting with the bread and tells the producers he would like a big bread body pillow. Now let's keep this little joke out of the bedroom before it becomes a TMZ article. Zach tells us he's trying to drive a wedge between Morgan and Mickey, so Zach rats Mickey out to Morgan, telling Morgan that Mickey's been going around the house saying that Morgan, Zach, and Vince have a final three. Now Morgan is weary of Mickey. She's got to work this out in the boxing ring. Our $1 million baby sorts things out by punching that bag. Meanwhile, Lauren, Zach, and Vince think they can get 7 votes they need to evict Will over Adrian. They'd need to get Ava's vote to be able to avoid a 6-6 vote where Lauren has to break the tie live on air. We jump past a lot of strategizing right to present day, where we're playing the BB Blockbuster competition. Adrian's locked in with his visionary glasses, but what he didn't account for are his two competitors also have glasses. That's right, 12 eyes on stage. They'll play Study the Study. There are two nearly identical studies. They need to count the differences between the rooms and lock in an answer with a minute and a half on the clock. The player who guesses closest to the correct answer without going over will win the blockbuster. So they get started in our weekly 2 minutes of house guess, meandering confused on live TV. With a good chunk of this where there's nobody on screen at all, Kelly locks in 7 quickly, Adrian with 6, and Will an astonishing 16. There are 8 differences, meaning Kelly wins the blockbuster, winning her safety for the 3rd week in a row. Honestly, incredible. This is also the outcome the house guests were really hoping not to have happen. Julie talks to the house, who are all wearing blue this week. Again, no communication with Julie's stylist. They reveal that Kelly won, and everyone's giving Adrian consolation hugs, but Adrian still has some fight in him. He's begging people to keep him. As Lauren, Zach, and Vince are meeting on the sidelines, we get speeches. I thought Will was about to call Julie his lemon drop, but Will gets really choked up about having to go against Adrian. Everyone's really emotional. This might be one of the hardest evictions in a long time. It's Adrian's turn. He cries and begs, saying he needs the money for his family, and he and Will hug. That was sweet. So we get to the votes. Vince is first to vote and votes to evict Adrian, so I instantly knew where this was going. Everyone votes to evict Adrian besides Keanu, Catherine, Riley, and Kelly. Julie reveals that by a vote of 8 to 4, Adrian's evicted, but not before he gets his water, as he's thirsty as fudge, and he leaves with his bread in his hand. I loved when he gave Julie a hug and put that bread in her hair. So he does his interview with his bread, calling the other players a bunch of chickens. He says he would have targeted Rachel had he stayed, and Keanu and Jimmy, and he says the house guests are keeping Rachel around because nobody's gonna let her win a second time, no matter what. He panders to Julie, saying he learned love one another. Julie says if only the house guests were loaves of bread. And with that, we say goodbye to Adrian, who made a big splash with his preseason interviews. He was the biggest personality in those, saying he was going to be the best to ever do it, which made a lot of us feel like he could be an epic crash out first boot, but we never saw that Adrian again, in the house or the diary room. He had friends in the house, but for the most part was an outsider who was never involved in anything important. He rarely talked game if his life wasn't on the line, but I think he's a sweetie, and we barely got to see his potential play out as a competitor. He should not have gone home this week, so this eviction feels icky. I'd love to see him on the challenge. I feel like he could be an interesting person to add to that mix, but based on the fact that he was one way in his auditions and another way in the house, the production team may be over him by now and not want him back on anything. I'm bummed that we never got to see him play the wall comp. That is honestly such a sin. Rest in power, King Adrian. House guests are upset. Lauren feels guilty for sending him out. Kelly just sent her best friend home by winning the blockbuster. We flash back to right before the vote, where we learn that Ava convinced Vince and Zach not to vote Will out, telling them that they'll be targets if they do that, so they flip their votes to vote Adrian out instead. Back in the present, Vince's plan is to continue to play the middle, and he tries to smooth things over with Kelly, who he just voted against. She's annoyed with him, and feels like Vince will do the same thing to her that he did to Adrian. Everyone else knows that Keanu, Kelly, Catherine, and Riley were the only 4 votes to evict Will, which makes them the 4 obvious targets for the week, and they all feel screwed over by Zach and Vince. Zach tries to make nice with Keanu and Riley. Keanu thinks Zach is just trying to be Prince Charming, and Keanu also says that Vince is basically in deep doo-doo with him. Keanu doesn't trust Vince, but he still has to work with him for now. Vince tries to make things up to Keanu by pushing tears out so forcefully he might also have to change his underwear. Riley and Catherine think it's embarrassing that Adrian went home. They think the girls manipulated Vince and Zach into turning on them. Kelly tells Riley that she had a final 2 with Vince, and now she prefers Riley over Weasley Vinny. Players go to a creepy carnival where the clowns all laugh like Maria Menounos. For their HOH competition, they'll be playing in New Rule, where in each round there's a rule to follow, and based on the format of every round, players will be eliminated as they go. To begin, they need to divide into 3 groups of 4, leaving one person out. Kelly isn't picked, and we think she's eliminated, but she gets to move right on to round 2, which was a nice twist. Each of the 3 teams need to pick one player to represent them for round 1. They'll navigate a balance beam, hitting all 4 checkpoints. The player with the fastest time will save their team in this round. That player will also get to eliminate 2 players from each of the losing teams. Zach is first, representing Ashley, Will, and Jimmy, clocking in at 35 seconds. Morgan represents Ava, Mickey, and Rachel, ending with 23 seconds. Keanu goes next, representing Vince, Catherine, and Riley. Twinkle Toes Keanu beats Morgan's time by less than a second, and Keanu eliminates Will, Morgan, Ashley, and Mickey from the game. In round 2, they'll make 3 teams of 3. Rachel quickly snatches Keanu and holds onto him like a leech. Riley tries to take Rachel's spot on that team, but Rachel just doesn't let it happen through sheer brute force. In this round, they'll run a relay race. Taking turns, each member of the team will run out and hit a button. One player will have to go twice. The fastest team will move on, and the slowest 2 teams will be eliminated. Riley, Jimmy, and Zach clock in first with a great time. Rachel, Vince, and Keanu are next, but Butterfeet Vince slips and costs them the win. When Keanu is eliminated, Ashley cannot control her excitement. Ava slips multiple times and eliminates she, Catherine, and Kelly. So we get to the final round with the final 3, Zach, Jimmy, and Riley, who face off doing the whole course. The player with the fastest time will be HOH. They all do well. Zach Zach clocks in 24 seconds, Jimmy a little bit slower, but Riley skitters to victory at 17 seconds to a very excited Catherine. Riley is so happy to be HOH. He says he feels 10 feet tall and bulletproof. He's about to stir the pot and keep all his allies safe. Definitely. Riley tells Keanu that he's going to nominate Mickey, Ashley, and Morgan, but Keanu warns Riley that he thinks Mickey or Ashley have the power. Zach also warns Mickey that Riley's coming for her and the girls, and Mickey and Morgan decide it's time to use that power. They don't tell Ashley about it, but Mickey enlists Rachel to be her actress and help her commit this fraud, and Mickey enables her power. So the HOH interrogation power begins. Riley will have 3 minutes to interrogate each house guest. If he can successfully guess who dethroned him, then Riley can keep his HOH. Ahead of the interrogations, Riley tells the whole group that if the person fesses up, they'll be safe, otherwise their ass is grass, and they effed with the wrong one. Off the bat, they know it's probably not someone who's been on the block over and over, or someone who's had another power, so Riley narrows this down to Rachel, Ashley, and Mickey. Rachel tells Riley she thinks America has the power. Ashley giggles and squirms, swearing that she doesn't know who has it and awkwardly walking off. When Ashley gets back to the group, smiling, Catherine calls her out for smiling when Riley was suffering. This turns into a tiff between Rachel and Catherine, where Rachel says Catherine needs to sit down, to which Catherine replies, I am sat. Catherine cut Rachel up with this, honestly. When it's her turn, Mickey keeps her cool in interrogation, leading Riley to think it's definitely Ashley. So Riley stands in front of the group, making a formal accusation that Ashley was attempting to dethrone him. Mickey stands up and reveals that she's the one who did it. Riley is mad. He says Mickey lied to his face. This becomes a tense moment that leads to Mickey being named the head of household for week 4. She says she prays that Riley can see this wasn't a personal move. It's not personal. I just didn't want to see you get a power and took away your letters from home. She tells Riley that she heard that Riley was going to nominate she, Morgan, and Ashley. Riley tells Mickey that she lied to his face and that she's being manipulated to turn on the realest guy in the house. Riley is pissed. He tells Mickey to put him up on the block. She's like, bet. Morgan is happy that it's still a secret that she knew about the power. She plans to take the secret to her big brother grave. Vince feels safe because he has a relationship with Morgan and through that has a connection to Mickey. Riley is sad and the only thing he has is Catherine. He is in love with her. Catherine's in the diary room saying that Riley is a sweet, beautiful soul. She admits that Riley's moves are working on her. Jimmy is annoyed that Mickey didn't tell him about the power, but he's happy that a member of Triple Threat is in power and he's definitely safe for the week. Mickey plans to nominate 3 of the 4 people who voted for Will in the last eviction: Keanu, Kelly, Catherine, and Riley. For the first time, Kelly doesn't ask to be nominated. She actually asks to be off the block because it's her birthday this week. We all know birthdays mean nothing on this show. Remember Keisha's birthday? Or when Red was evicted on his birthday after telling the group he had a terrible birthday every year of his life? Kelly promises Mickey that if she's kept off the block and wins the veto, she'll keep nominations the same. Mickey gets a letter from her mom. Riley gives Mickey a hug after this, and things get emotional. She forgives him for raising his voice, and they're instantly cool again. Mickey tells Riley that her plan is to target Keanu, and she asks him to go on the block to help to take Keanu out. Mickey meets Keanu, telling him he's not sniffing where he should be sniffing in the game. Not only is he a longtime house target, but Mickey is still annoyed that Keanu eliminated her from the HOH competition. So we head to the nomination ceremony where Mickey is looking radiant in yellow. She nominates Keanu, Kelly, and Riley, announcing that Keanu is her target. Kelly breaks down, saying she's exhausted and worn down by the game. She tells us it's been a rough 48 hours and a rough month in Kellyland. Rachel gives Kelly a pep talk, and Kelly says the farm kid in her doesn't know how to quit. Gotta finish the job. Mickey meets with Riley, implying to him that if the veto is used, Catherine will be the replacement nominee, which is enough to convince Riley not to use the veto if he wins it. Keanu and Jimmy talk. Jimmy reflects that he's been playing both sides. He made a fake alliance with Keanu, Kelly, and Vince after the eviction. He says, and that's on my good gameplay, baby. I can imagine the producers interviewing him. Can you say that again and goon a little bit at the end? Mickey tries to tell Kelly not to use the veto on herself if she wins it. Kelly says, the deal was if you don't nominate me, I wouldn't use it. Now you nominated me, so if I win, I'm gonna use it on myself. Mickey continues to persist and has a wild confessional saying, America probably thinks I'm a bitch, but there's worse things. I mean, there are worse things. We'll talk about that tomorrow. It's time to pick players for the veto, and of course, Ashley is in the shower. This is becoming my favorite recurring editing joke. They're punking Ashley by waiting until she showers to do this on purpose. I'm convinced. Kelly gets house guest choice and chooses Rachel, feeling like Rachel won't save Keanu, and Morgan is chosen by random draw. So it's 5 against 1 in the veto comp, with players rallying around beating Keanu. So they head to the competition, and host Ava face plants, which the show makes a meal of. Players need to escape from Vetotropolis by crossing the tiles, stepping on the right tiles, and memorizing the correct path. If they step on a red tile, they have to go back to the start. They'll play tournament style, facing off in 2s. In each round, the fastest player moves on. The other player is eliminated. Round 1 is Mickey against Keanu. Keanu glides across this sidewalk like a gazelle. He must have taken ballet. He wins this round. In round 2, Rachel shows Morgan who the iconic gamer is, kicking her butt and eliminating Morgan. Riley eliminates Kelly in round 3, so she'll be on the block for her birthday. Rachel had the quickest time in the first rounds, so she gets an automatic bye to the final round. Keanu and Riley face off. Riley's all over over the place, and Keanu moves on to face Rachel in the finals. So it's Rachel versus Keanu. They get started. Vince says Keanu's moving slow like Michael Myers stalking his victims. Rachel's doing well, but Keanu fee-fi fo-fumps his way to victory. When Keanu wins, nobody cheers for him. And he tells Ava, I believe you have a prompt. Ava tells Keanu about himself, shouting, saying, you can't talk down to me because I dress the way I do. Ava says, there you go, and throws the veto on him. After the veto competition, Keanu apologizes to Ava and breaks down. She forgives him, and they have a little moment. Ava gently reminds him that he told everyone he was going to pick them off one by one, so it's kind of his fault everyone wants him out. Catherine is stressed and worried that she'll be the replacement nominee, but Riley assures her that she'll be fine. Riley goes to Mickey, asking her to keep Catherine safe as consolation for stealing his HOH and nominating him. Mickey's receptive of this, and she wants to keep the showmance around as a target. Rachel wants Mickey to make a big move. She suggests nominating Vince, who's been double dealing and going against them. Mickey worries that nominating Vince will hurt her relationship with Morgan because Vince is Morgan's friend. Mickey meets with Vince, telling him that she's considering everyone, including him, as a replacement. He feels his nomination coming, so Vince tells Morgan, Zach, and Mickey that Jimmy proposed that alliance with Keanu and Kelly earlier. Morgan is instantly animatedly pissed off about this. She and Mickey are so annoyed that Jimmy went behind their back to make an alliance against them. Mickey and Morgan pull Keanu in, telling Keanu that Jimmy's been causing all the problems in the house. Mickey's still annoyed with Jimmy about nominating Amy and Will during his HOH. While Mickey's pretty fired up about Jimmy, she's still considering Vince as a nominee. Morgan shuts the Vince nomination idea down. Morgan is defending Vince, which makes Mickey feel threatened by Vince and Mickey's relationship. Ahead of the veto meeting, last minute, Mickey tells Jimmy that everyone's telling her to nominate him. Jimmy's hurt by this, telling them that he's had their back and that triple threat has been his priority the whole time. So they head to the veto meeting, where Keanu uses the veto on himself, and Mickey nominates Jimmy, saying she likes him as a person but doesn't respect his game. Julie's dressed like the Easter Bunny's wife in a purple textured dress with, of course, 2 pockets right in the front, one for my clicker to talk to the house guests, and one for my beeper to call my husband the Easter Bunny to tell him now I'll hide the eggs while Jamaica prays in the background. She also has a crazy haircut tonight. I don't know if there's one hair in this wig that's the same length as another. Let's dive into house events. Keanu just used the veto. He feels like it's poetic that he's off the block and Jimmy, who nominated him, is on it. Will doesn't think Jimmy was a good nomination. He hopes Mickey knows what she's doing, and Mickey does seem sure of her decision. Jimmy feels blindsided and dejected. Rachel gives her friends support and doesn't like her friends going against each other. Rachel blames Mickey's decision on Vince and Morgan's influence. Ashley also thinks this is an awful game move, but Vince, Zach, and Lauren are thrilled and celebrate because Vince isn't the replacement nominee. I can't believe they pulled this off. Morgan and Mickey meet to gas each other up about how amazing a game move they made. Back to our weird love story. Catherine's knight in shining armor, Riley, saved Catherine from being on the block with his gameplay. She's so grateful. When Mickey and Jimmy talk, she tells him she doesn't like how he's playing the game, but he tells her he was loyal to her the whole time, and confirms with us that he was always going to be loyal to Triple Threat, but now he's coming for blood. He's going to take revenge by nominating her. Later, Catherine thanks Riley with big hugs. He professes his feelings and tells us he wants to give her a smooch, but Ava's swinging like a kid in the hammock, ruining an alleged potential kiss. Ava might have gotten a rise out of Riley. Twitter would tell you that Catherine had that covered already. Ashley and Will agree that they don't want Jimmy to leave. They have Rachel's vote, but they need 6 votes to save Jimmy. Vince is convinced that Rachel is out to get him. Well, she is out to get him, so he knows, I guess. Elsewhere, Will and Ashley campaign to get Zach's vote to keep Jimmy over Kelly. Jimmy campaigns to Vince, while Jimmy's wearing Rachel's shirt that Jimmy hates. Jimmy tells Vince that if he keeps him, Rachel won't target Vince anymore, which Vince does find appealing. Which leads us to present day, the blockbuster competition. Riley, Jimmy, and Kelly will be playing safe crackers. They have to navigate 3 balls into their slots on the table maze. The first one to complete it and buzz in will win safety. They get started with Riley and Kelly getting an early lead, and when Jimmy drops a ball, it's not looking good for him. He almost comes back from it and gets 2 balls, but Riley gets all 3 balls in and wins his safety for the week. Julie tells the house guests that Riley won. Rachel's so disappointed, and she starts whispering that they need to evict Kelly while they have the opportunity. Rachel is concerned, to say the least. We get to speeches. Kelly makes her first ever eviction speech, thanking the group for an amazing birthday. Jimmy makes an emotional speech, shouting out Frankie Grande and Tommy Bracco for inspiring him as a viewer, and he shouts out Miley Cyrus. So they get to voting. This starts off very normal. 5 votes for Jimmy from Morgan, Riley, Keanu, Catherine, and Vince. Then Rachel votes to evict Kelly, and she campaigns to Ashley in the hall. A rare moment. Ashley takes a second to think and votes to evict Kelly. Then Ashley talks to Will in the hall, and Will is like, why did you do that? So Ashley runs back into the diary room and tries to change her vote to evict Jimmy. Julie's saying, no, 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 no. I loved the Ashley vote debacle. Then more votes for Jimmy come in from Will, Ava, Zach, and Lauren. Julie lets the group know that by a vote of 9-2, Jimmy's evicted from the house. I was expecting fireworks on the way out, but he whispers to Rachel to raise hell and throws his sunglasses on the way out. When Jimmy exits, he's doing crowd work, getting the people pumped. Back in the house, Mickey says to Ashley, I wonder who the second person was. And Ashley is internally screaming. Jimmy is cheerful in his interview. He thinks Catherine or Ashley were the second vote. Julie tells Jimmy the whole detailed story about what happened with Ashley's vote in the hallway. He speaks on Mickey, saying she didn't know the truth and made a decision based off what people were telling her. He blames Morgan more than Mickey for his eviction. Julie tells Jimmy that he's gonna be pissed when he finds out what happened behind his back. And he is. Goodbye messages. Mickey and Morgan say they love Jimmy so much. They love him so much. You know what? They love him so much they threw him out on the street and mocked him behind his back. That's amore. Rachel gives a genuine message, telling him she's gonna avenge his eviction. So we have to say goodbye to Jimmy here. One of the biggest personalities on this cast. He came in hot in the premiere, coming for Rachel right off the bat. At the time, I thought that would be his undoing. He forms the Triple Threat Alliance, which was a strong alliance in the beginning, and when he had power, he protected them. But he made nominations without all agreeing, which made them resent him. They stewed and stewed about this, and ultimately took this shot at him here, in my opinion, way too early. At times, I felt like Jimmy wanted to make good TV more than play the game, which as a viewer, I don't mind. He would pop off at house meetings, quoting other reality shows in his blow-ups. I do wish in those moments he wasn't quoting, so he could really have his own iconic quotes. In this final week, I hate how Mickey and Morgan treated him. They should have just spoken with him about how they were feeling. Instead, they made assumptions, said they loved him so much as a person, yet didn't treat him like a person, and waited until the very last minute to tell him that they were screwing him, and they mocked him behind his back, which was problematic, mocking the one gay cast member and saying gay ass, implying that he doesn't play with values when he's doing the same thing Zach and Vince are doing. It's a bit icky to me. I actually feel for Jimmy, as the girls who he thought were a safe space were mocking him, which did feel microaggressive to me. With the buzz about them doing this online, I hope this mistreatment encourages casting to cast more LGBTQIA house guests, because the lack of diversity on this cast did bother me, and then something like this happens and it's like, oh right, Jimmy has a lot to offer. I'm glad he found a friend in Rachel, and I hope she helps him to get cast on Traitors, and I bet she will. These other players with big dreams will regret wronging well-networked casting associate Rachel Riley. We're back in the house following Jimmy's eviction. Mickey's feeling happy about her HOH. She calls it chef's kiss. Viewers at home might call it chef's fart. Kelly calls herself a cockroach after surviving another vote. Rachel is once again destroyed by the eviction result. She tried hard before the votes to round up some votes to save Jimmy, including with Ashley, who she successfully pressured last minute into changing her vote, but we're reminded that Ashley tried and failed to change her vote back after casting it, and Julie said no, 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 no. Keanu orchestrates a hopping group hug with he, Riley, and Vince over Jimmy's eviction. Three foolish men telling each other woohoo. Keanu comforts his frenemy Rachel, who is crying alone. Rachel feels like nobody wants to work with her. They keep clipping her wings, evicting her friends, and she feels like they're just stringing her along. Keanu warns Rachel not to get too close with one of her last remaining friends, Ashley, because Ashley is becoming a house target. This ends up being a sweet moment for these two, interrupted by Ashley, who's adamant that she wasn't the second vote to keep Jimmy. Ashley's plan is to deny her vote, which I completely agree is the best thing for her to do, but people still think Ashley is the #1 suspect for this. Will knows the truth and is covering up for Ashley because he's a true friend to her, telling us his full-time job is basically cleaning up Ashley's messes. Ava feels like she's at war. She writes a letter to her boyfriend Caleb. She's seen much conflict, their mastermind's wrath, Jimmy's blow-ups, but she's fought back against Keanu and hopes her love will still be waiting for her upon her return. Yours truly, Ava Pearl. With that out of the way, we head to the HOH competition where the dastardly Jack the Dipper has ruined the party, double dipping. They'll go head to head buzzing in about Jack's dips in a knockout style competition. First person to buzz in correctly moves on. If you buzz in wrong, you're eliminated. The surviving player for each round chooses the next matchup. Starting with Lauren and Riley, Riley gets it right and tries to ask the group for volunteers. He gets none, but after a pregnant pause, Zach and Kelly do volunteer. Zach says his strategy is to zone out, but I guess it serves him well. He gets it right. Zach also asks for volunteers and gets none. He chooses his ally Morgan and Will to face off. I hate Jack the Dipper. I hate his face. I hate the smooshing sound of his dips. Why are his friends inviting him to all these parties? Anyway, Will beats alleged gamer Morgan and chooses Vince and Catherine to go next. Smoosh, smoosh, smoosh. Vince is correct. He was counting, which is a better strategy than zoning out. He chooses Ashley and Rachel. Queen of knockouts. Rachel gets it right and pits Vince and Zach against each other. Let's speed through these. Zach eliminates Vince. Keanu gets it wrong and Rachel moves on. Riley eliminates Zach. Rachel gets it wrong and Will moves on. Ava makes it to the final three from just not being picked by anyone. She guesses right and eliminates Riley, leading to an Ava-Will bestie final two. In the final round, Will buzzes in way before the Dipper's done dipping. He gets it wrong, leaving Ava as the HOH for the week. She celebrates with a tongue pop in the DR and calling us frikadelles. Ava tells the group she's over one-on-ones. If she needs someone, she'll call them. Ava tells Rachel she's safe for the week and can focus on her relationships. She also tells Zach that he's safe, so what a relief for Zach. Ava likes Mickey's aura and tells Mickey that Vince, Ashley, and Keanu are her nominations right now. Mickey doesn't want Ashley to go up. She says if Ashley's on the block, she'll go home. Riley and Catherine are are cuddling, as usual, in the bathroom, once again interrupted by Ava. While Ava's in the potty, they kiss. Nothing spells romance like bathroom bacteria in the air. Vince tries to smooth things over with Rachel. She tells him it's obvious he's only talking to her because his game's on the line. He does his classic move, fake crying, pushing tears out so hard he might pee a little too. He also cries to Will, saying he's an anxious, timid person in his real life. Will says to us, "What in the hell? Stop the crying." Will tells Ava all about this. All of this makes her want to nominate Vince more. Will suggests Zach as the third nominee instead of Ashley. They like the idea of nominating someone who hasn't been up yet and who they're not really working with. So we get to the nomination ceremony where Ava is dressed like the ghost of a Victorian child pursuing a career in the theater. Her nominations are Vince, Keanu, and Zach, saying these were the three people she felt were the most shaken by her winning. She doesn't want anyone to leave, but she says that's why this is Big Brother, not squatters' rights. Zach is extremely pissed off in the diary room, shouting directly to us that he's either going to win the veto or use his power this week. Ava adjourns her nomination ceremony. We finally get to see Ava's speech about Vince in a flashback. Why not show this on Sunday? She says his hands are in so many pots, gardeners are jealous, and deems him Vinny the Lip Panaro. Rachel thinks Ava is a badass for these nominations. She says this is revenge for Jimmy, and Rachel wants to target Vince this week. Zach is still pissed off that Ava went back on her word and nominated him. Will loves Ava's nominations. Finally, someone didn't make a weak-ass move in his eyes. Will comedically hides in the potty. As Ava talks to Zach, Will doesn't want Zach to know that he was involved in his nomination. Zach calls Ava out for promising him safety. He reminds us he still has his $10,000 veto power, but he's annoyed with Ava and doesn't want to give her the $10,000 as a reward for nominating him. So we have this melting pot alliance between Mickey, Morgan, Zach, and Vince. Mickey's just convinced Ava to nominate her alliance members instead of Ashley, and Mickey's being so weird to them now, not answering questions directly, not acting upset that they're nominated. Morgan feels like Mickey should have been able to influence Ava's nominations and thinks this is fishy. Zach and Vince agree that Mickey's acting suspicious. Ava and Keanu are on good terms and offer each other a clean slate after their fight at last week's veto competition and Keanu's nomination, but Keanu tells us that if he wins HOH next week, he may still nominate Ava. Ava tells Vince it is what it is and lies to him, saying he's not the target even though he is. Morgan is very annoyed with Ava. Will brings this back to Ashley and Mickey, which annoys Mickey because apparently she's closer allies with Ava than Morgan, so Mickey brings this right back to Ava. Now Ava sees Morgan as a potential replacement nominee, but Mickey's like, whoa, 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 that wasn't my intention to get Morgan targeted. Okay, maybe then think twice before saying that to the HOH then. Catherine tells Riley that she's in a bad spot in the game. She was almost nominated last week and only wasn't because of Riley campaigning for her. She feels like she's just being seen as Riley's tag along and wants to be valued on her own. They kiss it out. Vince and Keanu talk. Keanu's talking about winning the veto and using it on Vince. Keanu, girl, this is wild thinking. Vince tells Keanu that's genius. I'd say the same thing if I were Vince. They pick players for the veto. For once, Ashley isn't in the shower for this. Will and Catherine are picked to play alongside Ava and her nominees. At this point, Ava's dead set on Morgan being her replacement nominee, and Mickey's still trying to talk her down from it, but Ava's not budging. Ava's about to win the veto and do it herself. They head to the veto competition, where there's been a crime spree in Vetotropolis. Players are dressed as detectives. They have to solve murders by memorizing scoring zones. Then the board will change to nothing, and they need to slide their disc onto the board, hoping to land on a lot of points. Each round, the player with the lowest score will be eliminated and get a mystery prize or punishment. Each player eliminated will be able to steal a prize or choose to keep what they got. In round 1, Will has the lowest score and is eliminated. His briefcase contains the POV. In round 2, Keanu is eliminated, getting partners in crime, a punishment where he and another house guest of his choice will compete in an overnight task. He trades it for Will's POV. In round 3, Zach scores a 0 and is out, winning a London vacation, which he trades for Will's partner in crime punishment, so Will can take his chocolate drop on vacation in a really sweet moment. Ava scores a 0 in round 4. She wins the Butler Did It, a punishment where you spend the week serving other house guests. She trades this for Keanu's POV. In the final round, Catherine beats Vince, so Vince picks next, getting $5,000, which he trades for Ava's veto. Catherine then opens the final case, getting hard-boiled detective, an excellent detective costume. Vince is begging to Catherine, saying he applied for 10 years to be on this show, but Kat steals the veto from him, leaving Vince with the egg costume. She declares that winning is what's really important to her. Zach chooses Rachel to be his partner in crime for his punishment, and Vince says the way this competition played out is just like his life, so losing? Following the challenge, Riley and Kat celebrate her win. Ava and Will high-five for their rewards, but Ava is annoyed with Vinny the Lip for trying to talk Catherine into giving him the veto. Ava wants to convince Kat into using the veto on Zach so she can backdoor Morgan. Vince gets his costume. I love this egg costume. I want to wear it. The house guests get a good laugh out of it and pushing him around. Keanu as the butler. This one really tickled me. He has to make pigs in a blanket and serve the other players on his big old booty. Keanu was the perfect person for this. He really hammed it up all week and his weenies looked really delicious. Rachel and Zach have 12 hours to steal $100,000 in BB bucks from the backyard. They're opening money bags. Most of them explode, blue goo in their face, and send them to timeout. Overnight, they have to find the 4 bags that don't explode, so just an excuse to see them get blasted repeated over and over, which I'm here for. So they're getting splooged all night. This seems really easy compared to Angela's punishment last year, but this goes on for far too long. Thank goodness they finish it. Later, Ashley and Will tell Rachel that the melting pot want Rachel on the jury, with a flashback to Morgan simply saying that Rachel would be a fair juror, but Rachel gets pissed. She takes this as the other players wanting to just drag her along and vote her out as the mayor of the jury, which is kind of what they want to do, but that's not what they mean when they say they want Rachel to make it to jury. In a one-on-one, Morgan tells Rachel that she's heard that Kat and Riley's showmance is a threat, and she tells Rachel that she wants her in jury. Rachel is instantly triggered, saying, "I'm not going to the jury house." She tells Morgan her whole group is crazy. She will be sitting in the final two, so if they want to F with her, go ahead. Rachel is completely wrong here, but it's funny. And Morgan now actually does want to target Rachel. And of course, Rachel wants Morgan out, so she runs back to Catherine and tells Catherine what Morgan said about her showmance. Catherine and Ava then meet to decide what to do with the veto, and through very indirect conversation, they both can tell that Morgan would be the renom if Catherine uses it. At the veto meeting, Catherine decides not to use the veto, and when Zach has the option to use his power and save himself, he decides not to use it, telling us it wasn't worth risking Morgan's game, and he likes his chances in a vote and the blockbuster competition. Julie's wearing a billowing silky blouse that looks like a bowl of fruit and ripped jeans, ripped at the calf. She said, "I want them ripped, but please don't make them sexy. I'm a married woman." But old habits die hard when she inexplicably reached for the 6-inch chrome silver pleasers. We pick back up after the veto meeting. Rachel's loving there being 3 strong guys on the block. Vince is scrambling, whining in the diary room about potentially going home week 5. Ava's actually impressed with Vince for not cracking this week and wants to keep him around. Elsewhere, Mickey is confident, telling Ashley that she's going to be able to control the votes this week and send whoever she wants home. Ashley feels like Mickey's coming on too strong. Mickey wants Keanu to go home and wants to protect Vince. Ashley calls Mickey a dictator. Kelly's on the show. She and Riley are on the same page this week, wanting to keep Keanu around. Kelly wants to avenge Adrian's eviction, voting out Zach or Vince. Ashley tells Will and Rachel about Mickey's dictatorship and how Mickey told Ashley she has a team outside of their alliance. Rachel thinks Mickey's personality completely changed during her HOH. Zach is starting to feel like he had a bad read, not playing his power. Mickey tells him that Vince could have the votes over him and Zach could be going home, but Zach didn't want to put Morgan at risk. Now he feels like he's playing the game too selflessly. Back from commercial, Julie wobbles to her mark and sends us back to the house, where Vince is doing a whole film noir skit about his life as an egg, attempting his campaign, but nobody's taking him seriously. After the skit, Vince continues to campaign for Morgan's vote. Morgan is down to save Vince over Zach because Morgan feels like Zach will always choose Lauren over Morgan. Zach also tries to win Morgan over, telling her all the details about his power and that he didn't use it because that would mean losing trust with her. Morgan cries to us saying she feels like she owes Zach her vote for him not playing his power. So we get to the blockbuster competition where Zach looks locked in. Keanu is centering himself and Vince is there too. They'll be playing jumbo gemstones. They need to move their gems one at a time to get all of their gems of the same color on their colored pole. They get started and this looks really hard to do under pressure. Vince gets to an early lead. Zach never really figures it out, but Keanu slowly gets through it and Keanu wins the blockbuster and his safety for the week. After an insane 5-minute commercial break, we're back in the house where Julie reveals that Keanu won. You can feel the oh crap energy coming from the voters. Zach and Vince have a big emotional hug as Vince cries into his egg. They do their speeches, both propping each other up as besties. Vince is a lot more emotional in his, sobbing through it, and they get to the vote, starting with the ruler of the land, Mickey. Votes to evict Vince are Rachel and Will, and votes to evict Zach are Mickey, Ashley, Morgan, Kelly, Riley, Lauren, Catherine, and big butler Keanu. So Julie reveals that by a vote of 8-2, Zach is evicted from the house with an idol in his pocket. A very teary goodbye. Even after he leaves, all of the women are sobbing at all corners of the house. In his interview, Zach feels blindsided by how the week went. He has a positive attitude, but Julie tells him to lean forward and smacks him in the face with those cards. That never gets old. So we lose Zach here, who has so much potential. He wins his $10,000 power in the premiere and quickly becomes friends with everyone. He's even able to warn Ashley about the showergate situation and gets away with it. He finds out about his power and impressively doesn't tell anyone about it. And with that power, he was almost guaranteed jury had he not done something stupid, but he did something stupid. He didn't play the power. He should have told his allies about it right before the veto ceremony, then used it. But after not using it, he then starts telling people about it. He's someone who seems always used to getting his way, thinking that he was going to be just fine and everything's going to be okay because he's Zach and things go well for Zach. And 3 of the women in the house are in love with him that we know of. But all of the women except married Rachel voted him out. I think he cares greatly about looking like a good person, which I think he did achieve. He made a positive impression despite his a mistake, and I'd love to see him again, especially on the challenge. The challenge house would hate to see this guy coming. Anissa's already icing that ankle, so she can get in that house with him. Morgan is destroyed, and mourning after choosing Vince over beloved Zach. Ava is happy that she got a big player out of the game during her HOH. The two votes to evict Vince were Rachel and Will. Will had promised Zach his vote because he gave Will the London trip in the previous veto. Morgan and Vince feel like a duo now that they lost their third Zach, and Rachel consoles Lauren, who just lost her no-mans. Mickey is annoyed that Keanu won another competition. She wants Keanu out. Mickey's also annoyed with Rachel for voting to keep Zach. She tells multiple players that she's trying to target Rachel, which makes Ashley feel uncomfortable. Will implies that Mickey's acting like the mafia, and he's not going to be her minion. Ava runs this back to Rachel, who's dressed like Elphaba at the Grammys in confessional, telling Rachel she needs to watch her back, which gives Rachel motivation in the upcoming HOH. Keanu tells us that he wants to work with Rachel, Vince, Riley, Catherine, and Kelly. He tries to tell Rachel that they need to play the middle between the groups, but she tells us Keanu has no idea what he's doing, and she knows they're not in the middle, they're on the bottom. Confused Keanu and eggy Vince get to end their punishments. Keanu's gonna miss his BB Vince says he'll see his egg costume in Shell. House guests are getting ready for their prom after party. These house guests must have gotten slizzy at the prom because this place is a mess. They get a call from the party slasher who sounds like Ghostface. They'll study details of 6 rooms, and the slasher will give them hints in each round for rooms that are safe. If they pick a room that isn't safe, they're slashed from the game. So they get started. This set looks like Nickelodeon's Finders Keepers. I wanted these players to destroy these rooms, looking for something so bad. Will is horrified that the prom guests were partying in the nursery. In the first round, Lauren, Catherine, Keanu, Vince, Ashley, and Riley are all eliminated. A bloodbath. Ava's happy to see Vince and Keanu come back losers. Mickey and Will are eliminated in round 2, and Kelly in round 3. It all comes down to Morgan and Rachel. Morgan, through this, is very dedicated to acting scared. Unfortunately, she's not a good actress, as she looks from side to side to side to side, as scared people do. After the final round, they both come back together, but Rachel announces that she won the HOH competition. Morgan and Vince already know their potential nominees for Rachel, and their worst nightmare is happening in real time. Mickey's worried too and shares that with Will, but Will and Ashley, while both concerned, do understand that Mickey got herself into some mess by saying she's targeting Rachel. Ashley's trying to cover up for Mickey, telling Rachel that Morgan is the main person coming for her, but Rachel will still consider Mickey. Vince asks Rachel not to backdoor him and to nominate him right away. She shades him, telling him he's not a big enough threat to be backdoored. They have an awkward interaction that goes nowhere. Rachel is trying to build up numbers since all of her allies are watching from home. She approaches Kelly to bring her in as a number. Mickey feels like Rachel's being weird with her. Rachel hints to Mickey that she knows that she was being targeted, and Mickey tries to give a convincing performance as someone who didn't just say she was targeting Rachel. They have a tense conversation which culminates in Mickey saying she doesn't think she was being manipulative or shady. These two meet again the next day. Mickey asks Rachel to be real with her, telling Rachel she loves her. Rachel says she feels betrayed, that getting rid of Jimmy was a knock on her game, and that Mickey's been icing her out ever since. Mickey tells Rachel that Kelly's been telling Mickey things that Rachel said, with flashbacks to prove that Kelly told Mickey that Rachel felt iced out. Rachel says she's gonna ask Kelly about it. Mickey's like, no, 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 don't tell Kelly I said anything, which again makes Rachel feel like Mickey is selfish. This was edited very generously for Mickey. This conversation was a lot worse on the live feeds, and it was very long. Rachel confronts Kelly, who knows her instigating ways got her into a sticky situation. Kelly apologizes, but still kind of denies telling Mickey that, which makes Rachel doubt her alliance with Kelly. So we head to the nomination ceremony. Will Rachel nominate Mickey or Kelly? We see Rachel debating which keys to put in the box, which I feel like we haven't really seen since we lost the key wheel. I didn't even think the keys in the box had names on them, since we never see them. In the end, Rachel nominates Vince, Morgan, and Mickey, bravely and smartly taking the shot at the people who are coming for her. Mickey says Rachel's manipulative just like she was 15 years ago, and it's her mission to make sure she doesn't make it to jury. The obsession with jury continues, and Rachel wasn't manipulative 15 years ago. This was a wild thing to say. Vince saw it coming. Morgan is vexed that she's on the block with her best friends. Mickey says she smells like genuineness, and Rachel smells like fakeness, so the rest of the players are allegedly flocking to her to sniff her genuineness. After the ceremony, Kelly hugs Mickey, telling her welcome to the party of being on the block, which instantly pisses Mickey off. Mickey tells Will, Ashley, and Ava that she prayed for Rachel to win HOH this week. Ava tells us that Mickey's lying and cray-cray because she was targeting Rachel, not praying for her. Mickey tells them that Rachel is nasty, manipulative, and conniving just like she was 15 years ago, and that 2 kids and a husband doesn't make her a good person. Ouch. Ashley sees that Mickey was being a dictator the last few weeks, but still doesn't want Mickey to go home this week. Morgan owns up to Rachel that she would have nominated Rachel had she won HOH, but says at least Rachel wouldn't have been a target. She says this to make Rachel feel better, but it makes Rachel feel even better about nominating Morgan. Rachel and Keanu affirm their alliance, Keanu's happy not to be on the block this week. Kelly's also happy to be safe and feels like she could cautiously work with Rachel, and Lauren is scared that she'll be Rachel's consideration for the replacement nominee. Morgan's new strategy is to dress like Vince and bore Will to death. Will says he's just zoning out, but the players tell him everything and nothing. When they talk, he just daydreams of he and his chocolate drop counting his Big Brother winnings on vacation. Ashley's trying to get Rachel and Mickey to make up because her allies fighting is bad for her game. Ashley tries to defend Mickey to Rachel, which makes Rachel feel like Ashley is more loyal to Mickey than her, and Ashley realizes she has a whole wedding train of toilet paper cascading from her booty, which tickles Rachel. On the couch, Catherine and Riley declare themselves a thing, but Catherine tells Riley she wants to move slower. This makes Riley butthurt, and he professes his eternal loyalty to her. Catherine tells us she wishes that she could be vulnerable like Riley. They kiss and cry. Gross. Rachel and Mickey meet. Mickey tells us she's gonna tell Rachel she never would have nominated her. Mickey would have nominated Rachel, but it seems like she's successfully convinced herself otherwise. Mickey tells Rachel that she wants Rachel in the game. By the end of this conversation, Rachel's even considering saving Mickey with the veto, but Mickey tells us she will be getting her revenge on Rachel. A montage of Rachel coaching Keanu on how to play the game and not be delusional. They call their alliance the Frenemies. She's got her frenemy wanting to take her to final two. Vince asks Lauren if she wants to play in the veto. As usual, she's indecisive. Vince tells Lauren that she should want to win at least to save herself for the week as she stares at him catatonically. They pick players for the veto competition with Will and Lauren getting drawn to compete against Rachel and her nominees. Now Lauren has woken up and is acting alive, saying she wants to win it in the diary room. They head to the veto comp. They're playing Otev, who is a pig that's also in the mafia, along with his little lackey. Their names are Hogfather and Lil Stinky. They have to help the Hogfather to find a rat. In each round, they have to find the rat with an evicted house guest's name on it, bring it back to the Hogfather. In every round, the slowest or incorrect players are eliminated. The Hogfather threatens them to work hard by pouring cement on their heads. They're searching for the rats, crawling through the sticky goop. In the first round, Will has the wrong answer and is eliminated from the game. Vince is eliminated in round 2, as Mickey tries to tell Lauren to stop trying and let someone who's really going to use it win the veto. In round 3, the Hogfather and Lil Stinky are getting very impatient. Lauren is the only one to get this question right, eliminating Rachel, Mickey, and Morgan, winning the veto, and yet another big decision to make. Rachel does not want this veto to be used. She's interrupting Lauren's conversations with the nominees to make sure nothing changes. Vince tells Lauren, "Save me because I'm your final two," which is a very rational argument. She's considering saving him, but she tells Rachel that she's leaning toward not using it. So Rachel tells Lauren she'll support whatever decision she makes, but Rachel does tell her she'd prefer her not to use it. Morgan's campaign to Lauren is spilling the beans about Zach's power, telling her that Zach sacrificed his game to protect the two of them, and saving Morgan would be Zach's legacy. Lauren doesn't even know if she believes the Zach power story and cracks up in the diary room about this. With a shady cutaway from this conversation to Mickey drinking the juice and putting it back in the fridge, Lauren gives Rachel a heads up that she's leaning toward using the veto now, and Rachel's very unhappy, encouraging Lauren to reconsider. Later, Rachel walks in on Lauren, Morgan, and Vince strategizing in the storage room and tells Lauren she's a big girl who doesn't need to be told what to do. When Lauren leaves, Rachel says, "Real classy guys," to Morgan and Vince, accusing them of manipulating Lauren and pushing her around. Morgan says Rachel's projecting, and Morgan's kind of right. Rachel tells Ashley that if the veto's used, Rachel's gonna blow the house up. Right before the veto meeting, Lauren tells Rachel that she's gonna use the veto. Rachel basically threatens Lauren, saying if she uses the veto, then Rachel may or may not nominate someone Lauren really doesn't want her to. Lauren is terrified, running back to her allies, who tell her that Rachel's trying to scare her into not using it. It really doesn't help that Rachel is dressed like the Scarlet Witch, haunting the house looking for Lauren. Lauren gives Rachel her final answer. She's gonna use it, and Rachel is staring into Lauren's soul. Lauren thinks that Rachel's bluffing, telling her that Riley will be the nominee, and they head to the veto meeting where Lauren does use the veto to save Vince. Rachel is pissed. She calls this a turning point in the game, and she tells Riley to take a seat. The house is shook. Riley is irate, and we have Mickey, Morgan, and Riley on the block heading into Thursday's live eviction. Julie popped up on screen, and my jaw dropped. She looks resplendent in a simple red dress, and her hair is side-swept and laid, many bracelets that complement her outfit. Julie's always in a bunch of bangles. I ain't mad at it. She should buy this dress in every color. Stylist, bestie, you snapped and gobbled. We pick back up where we left off. Lauren adjourns the veto meeting, and tensions are high after Riley's nomination. Rachel feels like this was the best move because Riley's a big threat, and the other players should see that. Riley's mad, but he's fired up and not going out quietly. Catherine is upset and crying. Lauren reassures her that Riley has the votes to stay no matter what. Rachel's drinking a high noon, a little something to take the edge off, you know? Will, Rachel, and Ashley encourage Mickey to win the blockbuster to get Riley out. Kelly is still convinced that she has a final two with Vince. She brings it up to him, and he tells us he doesn't even remember making a final two with her. Ouch! Vince commits his vote to Riley, and he remembers that he also has a final two with Riley from day 2, but Morgan, Vince's even closer ally, is also on the block, and he promises her she'll be safe as well. He's hoping Mickey doesn't win the blockbuster, so this never becomes a choice he has to make. Mickey campaigns to Catherine, doing her strategizing with her M&Ms. Morgan comes in, and they scoop up the the M&Ms. Morgan knows if there's a bag of M&Ms in a bed, they were strategizing. She even taught Mickey how to use those M&Ms as an abacus. Mickey then makes comments about Ashley spending too much time in the HOH room. Ashley feels like Mickey's trying to make Riley and Catherine think that Ashley was involved in choosing the nominations. Ashley brings this back to Will and Rachel, who both agree that Mickey's acting crazy. And Morgan comes to Ashley, ratting Mickey out for talking smack about Ashley. Morgan, Rachel, Will, and Ashley all compare notes about Mickey. Morgan sees this as her in to get the votes that she needs. They even pull in Vince, naming this 5-person alliance the judges because they decide who makes the jury. Ashley's ready to throw down the gavel and blindside Mickey, which leads us to the blockbuster competition. Settle the score. Players have to roll their ball down their game board. The ball will fall into a point slot. If they're confident in their score, they can lock it in. The player with the highest score locked in after 2 minutes will win their safety. Julie tests out these challenges every Thursday morning and posts them on social media, and every time Julie would be eliminated. So they get started. Riley gets a 29 early on and just stands there waiting to see if the girls beat him. Morgan then gets a 29 and smartly locks it in before Riley can. Then he also locks in his 29, which was so dumb. But over on the left, off screen, Mickey scored a 38 and wins the blockbuster competition. Enter safety. At this point, it's about to go down. Julie reveals to the house that Mickey won to a pathetic woo, and Julie lets them scramble. These players are all over the place. Vince and Ava connect and have a quick chat that seems to go nowhere. The nominees give speeches. Riley gives a standard speech. He talks up Morgan, and Morgan gives more passion and gets emotional. In the voting, votes to evict Morgan are Catherine, Kelly, Lauren, and Keanu, and votes to evict Riley are Mickey, Vince, Ashley, Will, and Ava. Julie pipes into a very emotional house. Ava's breaking down and Rachel's consoling her, announcing that by a vote of 5-4, Morgan is safe, a rare switch up from Julie that she only does to people she hates. So Riley's evicted. Catherine instant tears. A lot of people instant tears, including Lauren, whose fault this is. Julie comes into this interview in journalism mode, asking some tough questions, potentially trick questions, but Riley takes accountability for his eviction, and of course they talk about Catherine. She reminds Riley he said he was going to marry her. He's like, oh, I didn't know that was on camera, even though he said it many times. This interview wasn't as hard-hitting as I thought it would be. Riley gives very diplomatic answers, so we lose Riley here, someone who had a lot of people talking on the outside world for all the wrong reasons, especially for someone who did practically nothing for 6 weeks. He was in no real alliances, spent most of the time laying around with his showmans. He was actually in a great spot in the game lately by no doing of his own, but because the other players liked him personally and feared him as a competitor. So nobody was coming for he and Catherine out of fear, but Rachel had no fear. She takes a big shot at Riley, nominating him, and he flounders in the blockbuster competition, so all of that fear was really for nothing. I mean, he kind of is scary, but more in the way that he acts so obsessed with Catherine, which had fans on the outside worried about Catherine's safety. Even though Catherine was returning the feelings and does seem to really like him, there were concerning findings from his personal life and criminal history that had fans rightfully worried at any moment that something bad was going to happen. The way he speaks to Catherine can be triggering to a lot of people watching from home, so this departure makes things a little bit lighter and easier to watch. I'm excited to see Catherine play without him and never want to see him on a reality show again. Riley was just evicted and it's time for his funeral. Catherine is upset. She's pissed and ready for revenge on the players who voted for Riley. Mickey voted for her friend Riley to leave to keep Morgan, even though she feels Morgan is distracted by her friendship with Vince. Rachel's happy that she had a big week as HOH, getting out a big target. So many players are upset. Keanu just lost his best friend. Ava says she felt pressured by Rachel to vote Riley out. Vince felt like he had no good decision between Riley and Morgan, and thinks he had no way to avoid making his side of the house mad. He feels like Kat, Lauren, and Kelly won't be able to forgive him for voting out Riley. Vince is in the judges alliance with Rachel, Morgan, Ashley, and Will, but he doesn't feel like he can really trust them. Vince is even still weeping after a commercial break, now crying to Keanu. He tells Keanu that Riley was planning to nominate Keanu, with flashbacks that say that really did happen. Vince is trying to justify voting Riley out by creating alibis for himself. Keanu eats this up, and Keanu tells Rachel that their final two alliance is still on, even though his friend went home on her HOH. Ashley is annoyed by Mickey, who's already going around complaining about the eviction and complaining about Rachel. Ashley and Will run this right back to Rachel. They like Mickey as a person, but don't want to work with her in the game anymore. Catherine and Lauren try to convince Keanu that Rachel is a huge threat in the game and that she's running the house, which makes Keanu second guess his alliance with Rachel. Players head to the backyard for the HOH comp. Morgan's been talking about doing the wall comp for weeks. She's so excited to get on that wall for the endurance competition. They're on the Mystere Express. Conductor Rachel tells them there's a murderous scoundrel that's taken over the train. They need to hold on as long as they can. The first 3 players out will be have-nots. You know, have-nots, which haven't been mentioned on the show in 6 weeks since the premiere, despite many house guests starving and suffering in the meantime. They get started, cold rain pouring into their gargles. They even pass by the Loch Ness Monster, and Nessie sneezes on them. Kelly says this isn't the first time she's hung onto the side of a train, with no further context. What the hell, Kelly? Will and Ashley fall first, followed by Morgan, who takes a hard fall. So those three will be have-nots. How much do you want to bet them being have-nots will never be mentioned again on this program? Players get blasted by blueberries. Mickey must be allergic. The blueberries take her out. Ava falls next. I was impressed that Ava lasted this long. It comes down to Vince and everyone he just betrayed in the vote. Kelly's loving eating the pink slime. She's hanging from the challenge and stretching, but falls mid-stretch, followed by Keanu. Lauren makes a very dancerly effort on the way down, and it all comes down to Vince and Catherine. Catherine doesn't even want to talk to Vince to make a deal after he voted for Riley, but Catherine falls, making Vince the next HOH, and the first two-timer of the season. Vinny the Lip, more like Vinny two-time. Tune into the feeds for more two-timing. Rachel's worried because she nominated Vince last week, and she doesn't know if he's going to stay loyal to the Judges Alliance. Vince tells Keanu that he wants Mickey to be the target this week. Keanu proposed that Vince nominates Rachel and targets Rachel. Keanu tells us if Rachel goes home, he's going to be like, oopsie doopsie. Vince promises Morgan that he'll never evict her, and Morgan gives Vince her blessing to nominate Mickey, as Morgan has lost so much trust in Mickey, especially knowing that Mickey was considering voting Morgan out over Riley. They consider nominating Rachel, but Morgan is all about the Judges Alliance and doesn't want him to nominate her. Vince holds his meetings. He's happy he's still in good with one of his many final twos, Lauren. Lauren likes the idea of nominating Mickey, Ava, and Rachel. Vince tells Catherine he's not nominating her, which makes her feel a little bit better, but she still doesn't trust him. Talking with Mickey, Vince tells her he heard that targeting Vince and Zach was her idea. She says she has nothing to do with them being targeted, with flashbacks to Will actually throwing these names out there. Vince rattles off other reasons that she's a threat and that he's nominating her. Mickey tries to explain herself, but Vince isn't buying it. He meets with Rachel and Keanu. Rachel quickly shuts down any notion of him nominating her. She tells us Vince better think twice before starting a war with her. One-on-one, Keanu again tells Vince that he should nominate Rachel. Vince is considering nominating Kelly instead of Rachel. He tries to get Kelly to volunteer again, but she's not down this time. She actually calls him out for constantly dogging her time and time again. He tries to convince her that he's nominating her so she can win the blockbuster. Oh, what an opportunity. She seems heartbroken over this conversation. Vince continues to waffle all the way up to nominations. At the ceremony, Vince nominates Ava, who nominated him in the past, Mickey his target, and Kelly his pawn and friend, who he's a horrible friend to. Vince ends his nomination ceremony. He feels like these nominations please everyone, and he's considering Rachel as a replacement nominee. Ava feels confident being nominated against the Cray Cray girls. Mickey confronts Morgan about the nomination. Morgan says she had nothing to do with it, even though of course she has. She's always in Vince's ear, and Mickey's right about that. But Morgan says everyone wants Mickey out, and they do, so you can't blame Morgan specifically. Ashley says Mickey's being messy about this, but Mickey rolls her eyes in confessional and says, God forbid I have a good social game and I'm a nice person. My parents raised me well. Duh. Why is she even saying this? Mickey thinks her friends will save her with the veto, but Morgan, Will, and Ashley all agree that they won't save her if they win. Now that Keanu's heard that Rachel will beat him in the end, his plan is to get Vince to target Rachel so Keanu doesn't have to do it himself. Mr. Promises Vince promises Kelly that if he wins the veto, he'll save her and nominate Rachel in her place. Kelly isn't buying it. She tells us she'd be stupid to believe him, and she would be, so I'm glad she sees it. Catherine's still feeling gloomy without Riley. She doesn't trust Vince after he turned on them last week, so she's trying to get Rachel to be the replacement nominee instead of herself. Catherine says Rachel makes her sick to her stomach. Mickey roasts Vince in confessional, saying she regrets not nominating him and making him cry, saying he's weak in the knees, and there's not a lot of men in there, but Vince is not one of them. She cries to him in HOH about her situation. He tells her if he wins the veto, he'll consider saving her, but he's onto her crying strategy, saying that he invented the crying game. Will misses his DVR back home. He wishes he could fast forward through the boring conversations in there that he's zoning out for. He even clock stoppers time so he could walk out of the bathroom when Lauren's talking. Keanu approaches Vince again asking him to nominate Rachel, and Vince again tells us he's telling people what they want to hear. This makes Keanu want to save Kelly and get Rachel on that block. Kelly and Keanu call their alliance the Block Party, and she believes him when he tells her he'll save her. Vince brings the idea of the Rachel nom to Morgan. Morgan isn't having it. Nominating Rachel spells doom for their newly formed Judges Alliance that Morgan is all about. Mickey asks Will to save her with the veto. He tells us he absolutely will not be doing so. It would blow up his game. When they pick players for the veto, of course Will is drawn, and Kelly gets house guest choice, choosing her Block Party member Keanu. So Will and Keanu will compete alongside Vince and his nominees. Vince reassures Rachel that after she nominated him, he'd be going out of his way to prove loyalty to her if he keeps her off the block. Players head to the veto comp, where in each round, one player will go to the bar and pick two glasses. They'll see that one is poison, one isn't. They'll serve one of the glasses to their opponent. Their opponent can switch with them. The goal is to trick the opponent into drinking the poison. After the target decides which drink they want to drink, they'll both drink them. Whoever has the poison will either lose a life or be eliminated. When players lose their first life, they'll get marked with a red hat. After two poisons, a player's out of the competition. I love a game of deception. Ava's first up to bluff. She chooses Keanu, giving him the non-poison glass. He drinks what she gave him, so she poisons herself, losing a life. Mickey targets Kelly, but also poisons herself and loses a life. Vince is next. He has to choose Will because everyone has to go. Vince successfully poisons Will. Will is looking dapper in his red hat. had. In the next round, Keanu chooses Will and poisons himself. Kelly targets Mickey, putting on a whole show while trying to target her. But Kelly fails and poisons herself. Vince targets Ava. She's the first player to swap drinks. She drinks the poison and is eliminated. RIP Ava. On to round 3. Kelly's getting a kick out of getting revenge on Vince by lying to him and successfully poisoning him, taking his first life. Now it's on. No one has an extra life. Keanu tries to poison Will. Will switches with Keanu, then they switch back. Will is poisoned and eliminated, and he was trying to be eliminated. RIP Will. Mickey wasn't chosen in this round and gets an automatic bye to the next round. Vince goes next. He's trying to target Mickey, but Keanu insists that Vince give him wine. So Vince gives Keanu what's ultimately poison. RIP Keanu. We hardly knew you, Delulu. Mickey targets Kelly. They agree that they'll die looking sexy. Kelly is poisoned. She has a whole seizure. RIP Kelly Streep. It comes down to one final sip. Vince trying to bluff Mickey. Vince poisons himself. RIP Vinny the Lip, which makes Mickey the winner of a much needed POV. Dang, quintuple homicide. Mickey, Rachel, and Morgan cheer and dance in the storage room, even though both Rachel and Morgan want Mickey gone. And Rachel knows she's gonna have to put in work to stay off the block. Vince has both Morgan and Lauren in his HOH in both ears. Morgan pitching Catherine as the renom. Lauren wants Rachel. Vince is stressed. Rachel meets with him, reminding him of the Judges Alliance. Vince tells Rachel that Keanu's been suggesting Rachel as a target. Rachel tells us Keanu is the dumbest person ever, and she confronts him about this right after, asking him if he's been suggesting her name. Keanu denies it and is annoyed with Vince now. Keanu's a terrible liar, and Rachel knows he's lying. Keanu then heads to Vince, now telling Vince about what Rachel said. Now Vince is back to feeling like he can't trust Rachel. In other news, it's Lauren's birthday. They're drinking non-poisonous wine. Ava suggests they go around and say nice things about each other. What could go wrong? Rachel's giving dirty looks while the other girls are speaking. Kelly notices this. Rachel tells us that she was annoyed by this game, and when Rachel walks away, Kelly brings it up to the group. Ashley doesn't like that Kelly brought this up, especially with nominations in the morning. Ashley and Morgan tell Rachel about this, so Rachel tells Kelly she can't sit in the hammock. Rachel's giving Kelly the cold shoulder and tells Kelly that she doesn't want a goodnight hug from her, so Kelly goes to cry about this in HOH, making herself the victim, even though she was a participant in the drama, and Rachel didn't even say anything that bad. Morgan reports this back to Vince, defending Rachel and telling Vince that Kelly and Keanu are Rachel's targets. Vince feels like he's making a deal with the devil, working with Rachel. The next day, Rachel again meets with Vince. She wants to be the last voice in Vince's ear before the ceremony, so she pretty much holds him hostage in HOH, professing her loyalty to him, and she doesn't allow Keanu to talk to Vince, which turns into an icy interaction between Keanu and Rachel, which leads us to the veto meeting, where Mickey obviously saves herself, and Vince decides not to take the shot at Rachel. He replaces Mickey with Catherine, the less exciting move, but somehow the crowd goes wild. I'm so happy, happy, happy Rachel's not on the block. We won. Julie's wearing a shocking, silky linen ivory, I want to call it a suit. Julie looks like Cinderella when her mice made her an outfit out of bed sheets for her outdoor job interview on a hot day. There's a lot going on here. Let's go from the ground up. Julie's little piggies are out tonight, gasping for air inside this monstrosity of a giant palazzo pant. When I think about Morgan Freeman as God, he's wearing these pants walking barefoot in the sand. Then we get to this top, a sleeveless prom tuxedo jacket, 2 tickets to the gun show. Let's get to the house. We pick back up where we left off. Vince just named Catherine as the replacement nominee. Keanu's annoyed that Vince didn't go along with the plan to target Rachel. Catherine calls Vince pathetic. She tells us she's gonna pluck Vince's mustache, one hair at a time. No one's happier than Rachel, but she's definitely made note of how obviously Vince was considering targeting her. Vince doesn't want to upset anyone, but now he's upset people. The upset people in question, the people who have Vince's back the most, including his final 2 Lauren. Ashley cracks herself up, realizing that she's told Catherine she has her vote over Kelly where Kelly could hear. She's happy that Vince made his move, but sees Vince as the bottom person in the Judges Alliance. In the kitchen, Keanu and Rachel are having a scuffle. He's trying to talk, she's not. She says, "Why don't you turn around and make your little eggs?" and storms away. Keanu confronts Vince for time after time not being a good ally to him, telling Vince that once again he's playing scared. Vince says he's falling into the same routine as his regular life as he makes himself small in his hoodie. This turns into a very inspirational speech from Keanu, interrupted, of course, by Rachel. Rachel worries that Keanu is going to take over Vince's tiebreaker vote. Players campaign. Ashley tells the group that Kelly sucks at the game, which makes Rachel encourage them to consider keeping Kelly, so they think about voting out the better player in Catherine. Lauren is friends with everyone on the block. She tells Ashley that she's thinking of voting Ava out, with Ava sleeping right there, right in earshot of them. When they leave, Ava springs awake, revealing she heard the whole thing. Lauren suddenly remembers that Ava sleeps there, and she returns to the scene of the crime. In full panic, as Ava pretends to sleep, Lauren runs this story back to Vince, which makes Vince consider evicting Ava to protect Lauren. In the bathroom, Catherine talks to Rachel, asking to build their relationship back up and move on from Rachel evicting her man Riley. She cries about not having having had a chance in the game, but Catherine tells us this is acting, and she still can't stand Rachel, but she thinks Rachel has a scary brain and probably would like the idea of teaming up with her enemy. Rachel tells us that she likes the idea of teaming up with her enemy, which brings us to present day, the BB blockbuster competition called Hilltop Heist. Players need to place 5 game pieces on their ramp so their rare red pearl can roll from the top to the bottom. The first player to get their pearl to the bottom wins the challenge. They get started with Catherine first to get her pieces on the board, but ultimately, Kelly wins the competition when her ball gets down first and earns her safety for the week. This challenge needed to be a lot harder. It was over in like 30 seconds. Julie reveals that Kelly won the blockbuster, saving herself in a spot where she probably would have been evicted. In the speeches, Catherine makes an attempt, saying anyone who's on the block against Ava will go home, so they should take a shot now. And Ava gives a very serious speech for someone in a red fur boa, but ends it with a YOLO. They get to voting. I have to say, Mickey looks absolutely exquisite. Everyone ends up voting to evict Catherine, except for Lauren, who does evict Ava. And Julie reveals that by a vote of 7-1, Catherine's evicted. She gives Lauren a teary hug on the way out. Lauren is devastated by this eviction. Catherine joins Julie. She seems very understanding of the people who didn't vote to keep her. She knew she couldn't count on Mickey's vote, so against Ava, she knew she was going. Julie then reveals that Vince is in a 5-person alliance, the judges, with Vince, Morgan, Rachel, Ashley, and Will. In the graphic they show, they put Mickey's picture instead of Morgan, which is such a huge mistake. Come on now. I know they're not putting these things together on the spot. On Riley, she says she has no regrets for her relationship with Riley, and she feels if it weren't for Riley, she would have been evicted a long time ago. Julie asks her if she wants to pursue a relationship with him. She says whatever happens, happens, but one of the bright sides is she gets to reconnect with him. So we lose Catherine here, who I had high hopes for, preseason ranking her 4th overall, and in the premiere, she referred to herself as a raging feminist, which makes it so sad that her whole story on the show is wrapped up in this relationship with Riley, with them over time developing their relationship as fans watched on in horror. For a period, I felt like she was in an okay spot in the game when Riley was saying he was willing to throw his game away for her, but we learned that after he did go, she was so set back in the game from spending so much time with him. She did make very rational points throughout this week. She shouldn't have gone on the block, and she would have stayed against Kelly, but against Ava, it just wasn't going to happen. While I wanted to see this big redemption arc for Catherine, where she learns to stand on her own 2 feet and triumph, I don't think if she stayed this week, that was going to happen. We actually started to see a very nasty attitude from her, directed at Rachel, and in this case, I think it's best that Riley and Catherine are both out of the game swiftly, and they can deal with this and move on with their lives, though I wouldn't be surprised if she turns up on the challenge sometime, as I actually do kind of enjoy rooting for a queen who gives me nothing, but it gets to a point. Lauren is devastated, losing her best friend and yet another ally. She doesn't want to play safe anymore and let things happen to her. Kelly tells us she's got bitches quaking, and you know what? She kinda does. Vince knows this week was bad for him, evicting someone who never would have come for him. He hopes this doesn't spell the end for his game. Vince continues to mope to Lauren, who feels like her alliance with Vince has dragged her down and causes all of her allies to go home. Keanu feels the same way. Keanu works on his relationships. He still has Kelly. Kelly feels like Keanu's a great ally. He apologizes to Rachel for trying to target her last week, and they come to an understanding that they still need to work together. Players get some mysterious moments on the screen, gifs of things that happened, including Ava falling, Kelly's seizure, and Will humping a puzzle piece. In booths, they'll answer questions about what they saw, getting eliminated if they get questions wrong. The last player standing will be the HOH for the week. Will is out in round 1, laughing at himself in confessional. Mickey and Rachel get out next. Lil Stinky stumps Lauren, so she's out, followed by Morgan, Ava, and Ashley. Terrible performance from the judges here, leading to Kelly and Keanu being the final 2 in this challenge. Kelly repeats over and over that she wants to target Rachel, but in the end, Keanu wins the HOH, calling himself an all-powerful wizard. First order of business, celebrating with Kelly in the gym. Through this win, these two have somehow made the jury. Keanu says Kelly's his best friend. He will not put her on the block. He tells Kelly he's planning on targeting Morgan for manipulating Vince and putting up Vince as basically payback for eliminating all of their allies. He continues to try to work on his relationship with Rachel, telling Rachel that he despises her friend Ashley, but won't nominate she or Ashley as a signal of goodwill. Mickey thinks it's weird that Rachel and Keanu are still buddies after the events of the previous week. She can easily go back on the block for nominating Keanu in the past. Rachel fills Ashley in that Keanu is keeping them safe. They don't know if they can believe him. Last week, Keanu was pushing Vince to target Rachel, and Vince knows that Keanu won't do that himself this week. Keanu wants someone else to do the job. Vince and Morgan have a very long hug, shown on purpose by the editors. I feel like they're doing the bare minimum to address that Vince, who has a girlfriend, is doing these hugs. Keanu tells Vince that Morgan's his target. Vince begs and pleads not to go on the block, telling Keanu he won't use the veto to save Morgan if he keeps him off the block. Keanu says he doesn't trust Vince not to do that, and Vince is going on that block. Vince becomes more and more disheveled as this conversation goes on. Rachel and Keanu have a nice little moment. Keanu now realizes that Rachel is one of the few people he can trust. He promises he won't try to target her again, and she forgives him. The Rachel-Keanu roller coaster is the story of the season so far. Vince breaks down to Morgan, saying he looks like a spineless weasel, and that he's gonna be malnourished for the veto. Boo-hoo-hoo. He's crashing out Love Island style in the BB house. Morgan makes an attempt with Keanu, denying that she and Vince turned on him, but Keanu doesn't want to hear it. He's more focused on inhaling his rap. Keanu knows he's nominating Vince and Morgan and is considering Ava and Mickey for the third nominee. He tells the girls that they're options, and neither of them seem to offer him any deal or even a reaction. One final meeting with Vince where Keanu says Vince is a terrible ally who's responsible for 3 of their allies going home. He doesn't care what Vince has to say, not when there's a sandwich to be inhaled. And another long hug from Morgan for the lip. In the end, Keanu makes his nominations. He nominates Vince, Morgan, and Mickey. You know what? I expected a Keanu HOH to be more insane, but he was decisive and had clear reasons for all 3 nominations. In his speech, he says Vince has consistently taken his kindness for weakness, and you know what? Vince has. His logic that Morgan influences Vince to go against him, and he has to nominate him next to her so he doesn't save her, are all fair and valid points. And he nominates Mickey, someone that no one in the house really cares if she goes home. Again, all fine and fair. So, good job, Keanu. Keanu's targeting Morgan, hoping to take her bad influence away from Vince. Mickey says Keanu is highly allergic to logic and needs an EpiPen. Vince owns in confessional that he's been selfish and hasn't protected his allies. Boo hoo hoo. Will isn't happy to see the judges' members on the block, but he refers to the meeting as really good cinema. Rachel laughs in confessional about Keanu making the exact same nomination she did. She's thrilled not to be on the block, but is still keeping in mind that Keanu tried to get her evicted last week. Elsewhere, Vince's pity party continues, crying on Kelly's shoulder, while Kelly has a funny confessional that she doesn't really care who goes home. Keanu is hoping that Vince learns a lesson from this to stop evicting their allies, a lesson he probably needed. In the bathroom, Ava and Ashley praise the Lord that they're finally safe, complete with church music and a church straw hat. It wouldn't be a Mickey nomination if she didn't go to the HOH room and fake cry to the HOH in a conversation that goes nowhere, so that happens. Mickey, who's wearing a genuine T-Core original hat, feels like she has Will, Ashley, and Rachel's support to take her off the block. She knows for a fact they will use the veto on her. They won't. Well, if you were missing gloomy sadness, we have to check back in on Vince, who's now sulking to Morgan. Morgan is now also sulking, and rightfully so. She's the actual target. Morgan talks to Keanu, who tells her he doesn't trust her. This conversation also goes nowhere. He's still targeting her. Waste of everyone's time. Finally, some fun. Courtesy of Godsend Rachel Riley, Rachel does a whole 80s workout video with workout tips including running up the stairs to interrupt conversations, rolling your eyes at Keanu, and building endurance, waiting for Lauren to answer questions. Gag me with a spoon. Keanu now feels like Vince has adequately learned his lesson and his punishment is over. So Keanu wants Vince off the block. He asks Kelly to help him to save Vince with the veto. Kelly tells us she's absolutely not saving Vince, who's screwed her over time after time, but of course Lauren is down to save Vince. Lauren tries to shade Keanu in the DR for nominating an ally, but she realizes she did the same thing to Adrian. Whoopsie doopsies. Keanu tells Vince that both Lauren and Kelly will save him with the veto. They won't. The show finally addresses the Vince Morgan situation. Vince assures us in DR that he has a girlfriend of 7 years and there's no romantic connection there, despite their lots of touching. Ava notices Morgan rubbing Vince's arm and tells the other house guests. Will says this is not the kind of behavior that he would do to his chocolate drop. This was a weird segment. The show continues to very nicely accuse Vince of cheating. Let's stop being nice. It's time to pick players for the veto competition, and Ashley, of course, is in the shower. Lauren gets drawn, and Keanu gets house guest choice, picking Kelly, so Lauren and Kelly will play alongside Keanu and his nominees. Keanu's thrilled that there's 4 in 6 chance the veto will be used on Vince, but Kelly is already hinting that she's not down to go along with the plan to save him. Kelly is actually thinking of saving Morgan and starting a new alliance with her. Keanu not picking Rachel to play is making people feel like Keanu wants to backdoor Rachel. Mickey feels like the best plan to keep Rachel safe is for Mickey to win the veto and not use it. The math is totally mathin'. Rachel's plan is to bring Keanu a fresh muffin, his favorite food. He assures her that she's safe, but that he's considering Ashley as his renom. For the veto comp, players are transported to Paris. Ashley welcomes them to Sies La Vie, a restaurant where they're joined by BB26 superstar Angela and her charcuterie board. Sorry, Brooklyn. Angela's opened the CPA, the Charcuterie Protection Agency. They each need to stack charcuterie on their board and avoid the Angela attackers, who will knock down their stacks. The first player to stack all 35 pieces successfully will win the POV. So they get started. In the beginning, every 2 minutes or so, the attackers knock down their stacks, making it frustrating and impossible at first. Angela does a great job hosting this challenge. She should host the whole show. In the diary room, Angela thinks about her charcuterie from last season and again gets on the floor to cry. When they get 5 minutes, Morgan nails it, winning the veto and ruining Keanu's plans for the week, and we sadly say goodbye to Angela. Can she stay, please? Keanu has to nominate a replacement. Rachel's trying to keep her allies safe. Rachel's new plan is to try to convince Keanu to nominate Lauren. She's going to start by making Keanu lasagna. So Rachel serves Keanu a lovely lasagna, and when his belly is full, she tells Keanu that Vince goes home against Ava or Ashley, so his best bet if he wants Vince to stay is to put up Lauren. Keanu hears her out, but still doesn't want to put up Lauren and risk losing an ally. Ashley talks to Keanu. She tells him if he puts her up, she'll have to return the favor down the line. He feels threatened by this, and rightfully so. She's threatening him. Ashley tells us her daddy didn't raise no fool. Keanu has a new evil plan. He tells Vince his plan is to tell Morgan that if she uses the veto on Vince, He'll nominate Lauren in Vince's place, but then trick her and nominate Ashley instead. Vince is all about this plan to trick his friend that he hugs, anything to save himself. So Keanu brings this to Morgan, and Morgan likes her odds on the block against Lauren, so she considers it, and she brings the idea to Vince, who acts like he'd never heard the idea before. But Morgan's also aware that this could be a trick, and after some cautioning from Rachel, Morgan backs out of the plan. Last minute, Rachel pushes Keanu to nominate Ava instead of Ashley. Rachel basically tells Keanu to F around and find out. Keanu tells us that's two of his favorite things, effing around and finding out, which was a hilarious confessional. At the veto meeting, Morgan saves herself, and Keanu does nominate Ashley, but Ashley's not having it. She claps her hands, saying, "Congratulations, you've been trying to get me on the block for 7 weeks. Also, congratulations for giving up the Tarzan act and putting on some shoes for once." She continues to eviscerate Keanu in a long speech that goes on, calling him a narcissist who talks to women like they're crazy. Rachel even gets involved slightly against Keanu, and this very tense interaction ends the episode. Julie's little piggies are out, and she's ready for the 2001 American Music Awards, wearing a Canadian tuxedo, big jacket with way too many buttons down the front, and her jeans are cut off at the ankle because Julie's motto is, "If the jeans ain't frayin', I ain't stayin'. I'll be prayin'. Lessie, my Bessie, get me in the Tessie." About to pull my Bible out and quote it as a Godspeed. We pick back up where we left off. Ashley and Rachel are still popping off on Keanu. Rachel tells Ashley she did a great job telling Keanu he had Tarzan feet. Mickey's worried about a vote against Ashley, but at least she has Kelly's vote. She tries to get Morgan's vote too, but Morgan's definitely keeping Vince. Maybe she'll keep Mickey over Ashley. Keanu reveals to Ava that her allies were trying to get her on the block this week. Ava says, "Frankly, F this house." After finding out Keanu talked to Ava, Ashley and Rachel come for round 2 against Keanu. In the kitchen, Keanu accuses Rachel of lying, and Rachel starts screaming at Keanu that he's raising his voice, as Rachel is the one raising her voice. Ava says, "Frankly, everyone keep my name out of your mouths." Vince is annoyed that the swing boat Ava is getting dragged into this drama. Mickey continues her campaign on to Will, who's giving her emotional support, but no commitment of a vote, and to Ava, who tells us that Mickey's done way too much sketchy stuff to be trusted. Mickey's looking for reassurance from everyone, but when Vince asks her for her vote, she gives him the same runaround everyone's giving her. Mickey, Will, Ashley, and Rachel agree that Vince going would be a massive hit to the other side of the house, but Will, Ashley, and Rachel are torn between taking the shot and breaking up the judges' alliance. Which brings us to present day, the BB blockbuster, Forensic Frenzy. They need to catch flying balls in their chamber and put them in their tube in the order provided. If they mess up the order, they have to start over. The first player to fill their tube will win. They get started. Vince seems to have an early lead, but Mickey's storing balls in her top, which is a decent strategy. Ashley falls out of it. In the end, cheater, pumpkin eater, Vince finds his final pumpkin orange ball, winning the blockbuster and celebrating in an assholic way that made me flip off my TV screen. Julie tells the house that Vince won. Morgan gives him a big meaty hug. Keanu also gives him a meaty hug. For a minute, I'm like, are they gonna kiss? Nobody's happier than Ava, who's cheering behind Mickey's back, then covers it up when Mickey turns around. We get to speeches. Ashley's is peppy and positive. Mickey says she's there with purpose, on purpose. Okay. And they get to the votes. Vince votes for Ashley to leave, but everyone else votes to evict Mickey. When Julie reveals that by a vote of 6-1, Mickey's evicted, somehow she's shocked. When she leaves, Ava's ecstatic, and Morgan and Vince, of course, have a big hug. In her interview, Mickey explains that everyone made promises to keep her. She guesses that Morgan was the one vote to keep her, which is wrong. Julie reveals the judges' alliance to Mickey. Luckily, they didn't put Mickey's picture up there this time. Mickey thinks Morgan and Will are in the best spots in the game. In goodbye messages, Ava says Mickey lies so much she could be Sleeping Beauty, and Morgan apologizes to Mickey and explains she had to get her out because Mickey was hurting her game. So we lose Mickey here, who was one of my frontrunners preseason, ranked 3rd, and in the beginning, she, Morgan, and Jimmy were in such a good spot in the game. Using her power was where it all went wrong. Stealing that HOH from Riley, she got a bad case of HOH-itis, and she randomly decided to turn on Jimmy, someone who I genuinely think would have never come for her, and had he still been there, would still be loyal to she, Morgan, and Rachel, and an asset against the other side. She blew up her game so bad that week, and was never really able to recover. She was on the outs ever since, never having any influence or being taken very seriously, despite thinking that she was in on so many alliances. I don't get how after being nominated and almost going home for 3 straight weeks, she would be shocked that she was voted out in this episode. Ultimately, she has potential socially and can win competitions, but has such bad reads in the game and has a delusional level of confidence that's both her strength and her weakness. I couldn't find it in me to support her after her mean behavior towards Jimmy. And isn't it rich that she didn't make the jury after talking about who she wants in the jury for 8 weeks? At least she has a genuine, one-of-a-kind, handmade, custom T-Core hat. Following Mickey's eviction, Julie reveals to the house that they all made the jury. The checkpoint, they lose it. Julie is joined by BB superfan Lance Bass, who's either aging backwards naturally or fresh back from a trip to Turkey. Lance says it's taken him 25 years to get on this stage. I feel like Lance Bass is one phone call away from being on a BB cast. He's gonna be on Unlocked, but who cares about that? The mastermind is back. He says he's unleashing the mastermind's month of mayhem. And the house guests will be checking into to the White Locust Resort, where one player won't be checking out. Lance and Julie end with a bye bye bye. This episode starts with a flash forward to everyone's reaction to who's getting eliminated, with Morgan saying it's the craziest night in Big Brother history. But let's flash back to happier times, where they're still excited, everyone's celebrating Mickey's eviction. Rachel's happy she made it to jury for the third time. Keanu and Kelly feel they're in a great spot in the game, teamed up with Lauren and comping out to the end. The judges are all still there feeling good, until Keanu gets a letter from management inviting the players to the White Locust Resort. So they head to this uncreative knockoff of the White Lotus. The players look cute. They get drinks and snacks. Will's loving the egg rolls. They enjoy maybe 2 minutes of fun, and they're interrupted by the mastermind, this guy, kicking off the mastermind's month of mayhem. One person's going home tonight. Players are shook, and the mastermind's concierge will be guiding them through it. The concierge is none other than noodle-headed, multiple-time Big Brother and Challenge loser, Tyler Crispin. They'll start the night off with a challenge where the winner will earn safety and start off a series of events leading to an elimination. One at a time, they'll slide their totem to the green end of 3 tables. The player who does this the quickest will be safe. The show knows this isn't fun to watch, and it's sped through. Ava crushes this and wins safety. Crispy then tells them that the mastermind requires a sacrifice, revealing the mastermind's maniacal maze. Ava will choose one house guest to attempt the maze. They'll get 6.5 minutes to attempt. If they fail, they're out. If they succeed, they'll choose the next player to attempt the maze with 1 last minute on the clock, and so on until someone's eliminated. Also, the fastest player who attempts this will be the HOH for the week. So they head into the house where Keanu's pitching to go first. Rachel pulls Ava into the storage room to ask Ava to choose her first. Ava is offended that Rachel pulled her arm, which is so lame. Ashley agrees that Rachel was dragging Ava, also lame. Ava wants to pick Morgan to avoid making waves, and they get called to make a decision. Will, Kelly, and Ashley are hoping not to get picked at all. Ava ends up choosing Vince to go first, even though 3 other players have their hands high in the air to volunteer. So Vince takes on the maze. Meanwhile, in the house, Keanu calls Rachel out for pulling Ava's arm. These two will have a fight anytime, anywhere. Vince completes the challenge with about 3 minutes left and is rewarded with a big, juicy, platonic hug from his friend Morgan. Vince now gets to choose the next player. He's trying to get Lauren to pick Morgan. He tells Morgan and Rachel that he's picking Lauren, which makes it clear to them where his loyalties lie. Morgan's upset that Vince is choosing Lauren over her, but Lauren does promise Vince that when she wins, she'll pick Morgan. Rachel's spiraling, begging Vince to reconsider, but he does end up choosing Lauren. I kind of get his reasoning, but he chose Lauren over Morgan, who he's been cheating on his girlfriend with for weeks. So Lauren takes on this maze. She's calm, cool, and collected, but they don't even show Lauren competing in the maze. We're told she does complete it and gets to pick the next person to play. Morgan is stressed about Lauren's upcoming choice. Lauren wants Morgan to pick Kelly, and Morgan secretly wants to pick one of the judges, but doesn't tell Lauren that. Lauren does pick Morgan to take on the maze, where Morgan eats and leaves no crumbs, saving herself from elimination. Morgan gives Rachel a pep talk and tips, telling Rachel it's easy, so Rachel wants to beast this thing, and then set Kelly up to go home. So Morgan picks Rachel to go next, and Rachel takes on the puzzle. Rachel's quickly struggling and panicking. She just can't figure this out. She goes through her whole time and barely gets anywhere. So Big Brother tells the house guest that Rachel's been sacrificed, and Rachel's devastated. I'm devastated. The house guests are. America is. Rachel tells us she feels like she let everyone down. They do let the house guests come give her a teary goodbye. Rachel leaves off with a powerful speech telling everyone she's going to be a tough juror, and if they want to be a legend like her, they have to get blood on their hands. So we lose Rachel here, an icon, a legend. First of all, this story doesn't make sense, that she would enter as a punishment from the mastermind and then be sacrificed back to him. This deal would never work for Jigsaw or any real bad actor. This season was all about Rachel, entering late as the sole returnee, a winner in a season with newbies who didn't know her and misunderstood her, with no advantages. She didn't have it easy. She had to fight tooth and nail to get anything done around there, especially with frenemy Keanu being so difficult the whole 2 months. She even won HOH herself and made big swings, saving the season by evicting Riley. Through the season, she plays the best political game she's ever played on any show, never being nominated, getting votes, or even being evicted. So it's really a shame that she'd be eliminated in this episode after not being able to figure out this one maze puzzle that Morgan told her would be easy. This was really sad to watch, and I can't wait for Rachel to feel how much love and support there is for her out here. Probably more than she's ever had coming off a show, even when she won. She would have won if she hadn't lost, by the way. The freaking mastermind is back already, telling them not to get too comfortable because the month of mayhem has just begun. Tyler announces that the player with the fastest time in the wheel maze was Lauren, so Lauren wins her second HOH of the summer. Players return to the house to mourn Rachel and half-assedly play the game. Ashley wants to speak with the White Locust Hotel management because the stay was terrible. Me too, Ashley. Morgan is still upset with Vince for picking Lauren over her in the maze competition. Morgan breaks down in the DR about Vince's decision, causing the Judges Alliance to fall apart. Vince is still happy as a clam with his decision because Lauren's HOH now and he's sitting pretty. He also inadvertently rats Morgan out to Lauren, telling Lauren that Morgan is mad that he picked Lauren over her, and Lauren tells Vince that she's thinking of nominating Morgan now. Vince has 2 final twos with both of them, so he wants them to get along. In the kitchen, reflective Keanu mourns the loss of his frenemy final 2, complete with fade-in clips from Heaven and a cheap song with lyrics climax, which the show never does. Keanu wipes a single tear, but he must press on. Will and Ashley feel doomed now. Will says they can't abracadabra their way out of this one. Ava says that Rachel's responsible for her own demise. Ava plans to keep working with Ashley and Will on one side and has a final three with Kelly and Lauren on the other. This week, Lauren's targets are Morgan and Keanu. A bit of fun from Ashley. She's having a blast accusing the other players of lying about their job, telling Kelly lies about the other house guests, and acting dumb to hide her career as an attorney. In HOH, Keanu strategizes with Lauren, but Lauren tells us that Keanu doesn't know he's really her target this week and not her ally. Lauren makes her nominations, choosing Morgan, Will, and Ashley, telling us that her ultimate goal is to get Keanu up on the block with Morgan to ensure a big threat goes home. The nominees are all understanding of her choices, but Morgan is still blaming Vince for this and cries to Vince in the storage room. He promises that he'll save her with the veto. But Lauren doesn't give Morgan much reassurance, which motivates Morgan to save herself even more. Will DVRs through his whole boring conversation with Lauren. Fast forward, please, I don't blame him. Morgan complains to Ashley that she's worried that Lauren won't keep her safe. Ashley decides to use this to her advantage, running this conversation back to Lauren, who now especially doesn't want to do anything to help Morgan. They pick players for the veto competition. Morgan gets house guest choice and chooses her snuggle bunny Vince, and Ava's drawn as well, so Vince and Ava will join Lauren and her nominees in the veto comp. Lauren continues to lie to Morgan about saving her with the veto, but Lauren tells us she's so bad at lying. Morgan is so sus of Lauren. She's ready to come for Lauren's ass. Morgan tells Vince about this, making him lean again towards saving Morgan with the veto. So they head to the veto comp. BB Comics, they have to solve a mystery. Well, it's just the same as BB Comics every year. Zipping across the zip line, trying to figure out which of their comics are real, putting them in the correct order on the board. The player who does it fastest will win the veto. I remember when BB Comics was fun and new, but the comics this year were so lame. The best ones are Keanu as the butler, with Sweet Kenny K as one of the weenies. But why wasn't Vince one of the weenies? I like Jimmy's Cobra Couture. Why is Kelly a sandwich? The show doesn't even have an explanation for it. The worst ones are Morgue in. Why is Morgan in a morgue? She's been there for 9 weeks, and the show has nothing about her to make a comic besides the first syllable of her name. And all we know about Catherine is she has a nose ring. I never realized she had a nose ring. She was never on screen. We need to make these comics good or stop doing this. I do like the costumes for this challenge, and seeing them in the DR with them on, and Will swinging on his zipline. Morgan runs this challenge like the Navy. The gamer really came out today. Lauren does well in the comp too, but she wastes time in the end to throw it. In the results, the top three were in third with about 20 minutes, Ashley, in second with about 13 minutes, Lauren, and in first at around 12 minutes is Morgan, pulling out a clutch, potentially life-saving veto win. Later, Keanu suggests to Vince that Vince would be the better replacement nominee because he'd be safer than Keanu. Vince is of course not down for this. Keanu, have you not met Vince, the most selfish person on this cast? Lauren breaks the news that she's considering Keanu to him. Keanu is annoyed because he went out of his way to keep Lauren safe last week. He continues to try to press her to nominate Vince, but she does her thing where she stares at the wall and says nothing. So we get to the ceremony where Morgan of course saves herself with the veto and Lauren, as planned, nominates Keanu in her place. Julie's wearing her good wig with the waves tonight, and she's donning a simple denim dress, more suited for dancing down the street in West Side Story than hosting a summer television show. I thought I liked the skirt, but the stitching makes it look like she's wrapped in a tree skirt. Julie does look good though. It's the wig for me. But let's dive into it. We pick back up after the veto meeting. Ashley doesn't like being on the block with Will, but she's ready to campaign to save herself. If Keanu loses the blockbuster, Keanu's going home. But Will and Ashley against each other is a likely possibility that players have to prepare for. Vince and Lauren agree that they're not working with Keanu anymore, and Ashley, Will, and Morgan notice how close Vince and Lauren are, with Ashley pointing out to Morgan that Vince continues to choose Lauren over her, which upsets Morgan. Morgan's crying because Vince ditches her all the time, but the show doesn't do a good job painting how attached Morgan is to Vince and jealous of Lauren a lot of the time for no reason. Julie brings out Rachel, who looks absolutely resplendent in a red ruffle gown with jeweled bow necklace. I mean, look at Rachel's outfit compared to Julie's. Gorgeous is gonna devour cute every time. Rachel feels like she could have approached Ava differently, but she knew the twist from Reindeer Games and how she wanted the competition to go. She says her whole life flashed before her eyes in that wheel. On Keanu, she sees him as a hard worker, and she respects his game and work ethic, but not his messy gameplay. Julie points out that Rachel didn't get nominated or voted out, framing it as her stamping her name in history, and shows her iconic comic where she looks just like she does tonight. I'm glad they gave Rachel her chance at an interview, but I still feel bitter. Back to the house, Ashley's looking for votes. She starts by offering Keanu to trade votes for each other if either of them is safe. She also argues that nobody will want to be next to Will on the block, so it's better to keep her, and they bond over mutual resentment for Lauren. Ashley sees Keanu as a potential new shield now that Rachel's gone. Morgan is giving Vince the cold shoulder in the kitchen, so they talk and she airs out her grievances for him ditching her for Lauren. Vince takes Morgan's hand and he's not making lip contact, but he's kissing her hand, and he tells her he's going to be showering her with attention all day. Kelly has not been in this episode at all outside of this dance in the washing machine door. Keanu and Morgan chat. They also bond over targeting Lauren. Morgan Morgan loves that idea. Lauren out of the house means more of Vinny the Lips lips belonging to her. Which brings us to present day. The BB Blockbuster comp, key to safety, players need to untangle their ropes around the luggage cart until they have enough slack to reach their podium and insert their key. They get started. Girl, let me tell you something about Keanu. He's nimble and quick in his leopard shorts. He takes off like a rocket, gliding on the ground like butter. Ashley's behind him. At this point, she needs Keanu to get tangled up, but he's gliding like Magic Mike. This challenge goes for a while. They really tangled them up, but Keanu does get enough slack to win the competition, earning his safety and giving the house a very tough choice. Keanu better be getting that challenge call after this. I feel for Ashley and especially Will, who put his all into losing this challenge. He's in dire straits on the floor after this. Julie reveals to the group that Keanu won the comp. Will is limping coming back in. My heart aches. The vibe is sad, sad, sad. They get to speeches. Ashley cries through hers. These are waterfall tears. Will struggles to get words out, saying, I know you all love me, and if I leave, it's because I'm a lovable type of dude. And of course, a shout out to his chocolate drop. They get to the votes. Votes to evict Ashley are Ava and Kelly, and votes to evict Will are Keanu, Morgan, and Vince. Julie reveals that by a vote of 3-2, Will is evicted. An emotional goodbye, especially from Ava, who's crying hard, looking like the Grudge. A cute little exit, telling Julie he was voted out for being likable, and he can't change that about himself. No, he can't. Will loves the other house guests, saying they're lucky he's gone because he would have beaten all of them in a final two. Will says he's rooting for Ava to win, but that Vince is probably going to win. But Julie interrupts him, saying expect the unexpected. Sounds like Julie's hinting they're going to send Kelsey in there to get his ass. So we lose Will here, who was by and large the most easily likable person on this cast for both people in and out of the house. He had a rough start to the game, struggling to find his footing. He bonds with Ava in the first week, and over time took Ashley and Mickey under his wing. But the Bond alliance falling apart was a big dip for him. He was on the block for a few weeks, and I give him credit for A, making it clear that he's not happy to go on the block anymore, and B, getting into another alliance in the judges, and being involved in the Rachel side of the house. He talked a good amount of game on the feeds, though he was never the one in the driver's seat coming up with new ideas. The only way he realistically could have gotten much further than this was with better strategic gameplay. He would have had to campaign against Ashley and had a perfect strategic game moving forward, and I'm just left feeling like the show is so stacked against the older house guests. I just think it's unrealistic for an older player with an injury to win the show, especially when it becomes basically the challenge. But I'd be ecstatic if we saw Will again on TV somehow, put him on The Amazing Race with Gwen, actually chocolate drop Gwen for Big Brother 28, but make the challenges equitable so she can have a chance. Ava is devastated after Will's eviction. She's relying on her girlies Lauren and Kelly, and she has something with her friend Ashley. Ashley wants to work with Keanu in the near term, but cut him sooner than later. Vince feels like they made a smart move, voting out Will over Ashley. They were never beating Will in a final two. Lauren is stressed. She knows she's a target, and she can't play for HOH. Keanu is annoyed with Lauren, which is music to Morgan's ears. She wants Lauren's quiet ass out. A whole segment of Vince and Morgan being touchy. Everyone notices it. Keanu calls it emotional cheating. They hug so long, everyone leaves the room, and Keanu calls them Cheating Island to the whole group. Kelly rats Keanu out to Vince for the cheat man's comment, telling us she wants to drive a wedge between Vince and Keanu. Vince defends himself in confessional, saying, why would I cheat in this house if everything's always on camera? I would never do that. Vince is trying to lie to us. You know us, the people on the other side of the cameras. The doorbell rings, and it's Zingbot, ready to roast these house guests who really deserve it. Let's get to these zings. Some of these are boring. Ironically, boring Zingbot sings about how Lauren is boring and Kelly is creepy. Vince is a 34-year-old crybaby who's unemployed and lives with his parents, saying his whole life is a zing, which is good, but Zingbot forgot he has no girlfriend. Ava wears hobo chic. I agree. Ava dresses like she should be skipping down the yellow brick road with the Lion and the Tin Man. Keanu has the feet of a troll, the snore of an ogre, and the smell of an orc, and pees all over the bathroom floor. Zingbot just be saying whatever. He sings a song about Ashley being Rachel's follower, and that Ashley isn't memorable other than her showers. This is the best they had for Ashley. At least these zings were great for her game. Zingbot says Morgan gives Vince hugs and is his girlfriend, which is so awkward and was the worst zing by far. Vince continues to defend himself in DR as Morgan frantically scrubs a dish. We all have our coping mechanisms. Morgan and Vince double down with a big hug to make themselves feel better. Morgan says she'll hug Vince less. He's visibly disappointed when she says that. Morgan says it would be different if she tried to rub Vince's back. Keanu tells her, you have rubbed his back. Keanu later tells Vince that it does look like he's cheating on his girlfriend, referencing the long hug that made everyone clear the room. For their HOH comp, they find out that Zingbot is dead. They have to watch a documentary about Zingbot's demise and answer questions about it. So Zingbot was confronted by the mastermind in the street. The mastermind says, you entered the house without my permission. Zingbot says, I didn't need your permission to get with your mother. Oh shit. So the mastermind zaps Zingbot and now he is deceased. They start answering questions, scoring points as they go. It comes down to a tiebreaker between Vince and Kelly, getting asked how long the documentary was. They both go over, but Vince has a closer guess and wins, giving Lauren a big hug with a thumb caress. If I were his girlfriend, this one thing would have been enough for me. Added on to all the other things, Kelsey Kelsey, get on Tinder. Back in the house, Morgan is already plotting against Lauren. She wants to try to get Vince to nominate his old buddy Lauren. Lauren is worried about Kelly and Ava, who are likely nominees that she wants to save. Morgan has Ashley and Keanu's support to put pressure on Vince to nominate Lauren. Keanu, for once, has sound logic. If Lauren isn't nominated, she can win the veto and save one of her friends, forcing one of the others onto the block. In HOH, Vince confronts Keanu for the cheating island comment, but Vince tells us his targets this week are Ava and Kelly. Deja vu, Morgan and Vince have a long hug. Morgan tells Vince that it's crazy that Lauren hasn't been nominated, and if they keep letting her not be nominated, she'll win the show. So Vince decides to ask Lauren for permission to nominate her. She cries and tells him he does not have her permission to do that, despite him saying please literally 100 times. So at his nomination ceremony, Vince nominates Ava, Kelly, and Keanu, calling Keanu out at the meeting for talking crap about Vince. Vince calls Ava a pawn, and then Ava stages this whole fake blow up at this meeting where she slams a pawn on the table, saying the whole house is gonna shake. Spare me these theatrics. Can we not make fake blow ups at the meeting a thing that sticks in the future? Morgan is hurt that Vince didn't nominate Lauren. Feeling like Vince yet again chose Lauren over her, Morgan continues her campaign on Vince, telling Vince that he prefers Lauren, saying, I don't understand why you need to hold her hand and walk her to the block for her, and sit her down and give her a blankie and a bottle, and pat her back while she's drinking the milk. Dang. She tells him he's losing jury votes. He says he feels like she's breaking up with him in the game and giving him an ultimatum. She is. After a terrible song from the girls, Keanu approaches Vince for a continuation of the campaign to get Lauren on the block, which Vince is becoming more receptive to. They pick players for the veto comp. Keanu gets house guest choice and picks Morgan, and Lauren is picked, so Morgan and Lauren will face off against Vince and his nominees. Ashley's annoyed that Keanu didn't pick her after he told her he would. Ava overhears them talking while she's in the bathroom and tells Lauren that Vince is planning to nominate Lauren. So Lauren confronts Vince, who can't deny that he's considering Lauren as the renom, telling Lauren about Morgan's ultimatum. Lauren is so annoyed with Vince now, and they head to the veto comp where they need to gather balls of evidence, balancing them on their magnifying glass at the end of their teetering balance beam. The first player to get all of their evidence on the magnifying glass at the same time will win the veto. They get started, teetering and tottering. Kelly and Ava suck at this. Morgan gets to a lead and doesn't let up, finishing first and winning her third POV in a row. Morgan dedicates this veto win to the gamers. Keanu wants Morgan to use it to save him, but Ava has a better campaign to Morgan. Ava says she won't forget it if she uses it on her, and Morgan likes that Ava's more beatable. Morgan tells us she's clocking into work. She puts in hours convincing Vince that if he doesn't put up Lauren, he's losing the game, with hours and hours of Morgan talking to Vince all night, even in the morning. She promises him that she won't evict Lauren if he nominates her, but she tells us if Lauren loses the blockbuster, she'll be very tempted to vote her out. At the veto meeting, where Morgan's wearing her iconic promo look, Morgan decides to save Ava with the veto, and Vince does decide to nominate Lauren in Ava's place. So we leave off with Lauren, Keanu, and Kelly on the block. Julie's wearing every flower in the patch in a cute spring number just in time for Halloween. Julie looks cute. She knew she was going to be working a double shift today, and maybe she has someone to impress. Back in the house, after the veto meeting, Kelly, Keanu, and Lauren are on the block. Morgan acknowledges that she promised Vince she wouldn't target Lauren, and in DR, she seems down to keep that promise. Ashley's not so sentimental about it. She tells us her goal is to turn on Lauren and vote her out, and Keanu's down too. Vince promises Lauren that she'll be safe. Lauren's upset. She's protected Vince through the whole game, and he's ruined her game all summer. Vince tells Lauren and Morgan that they're his ideal final three. Morgan says of course he would want that, but she wants to ensure Vince can't take Lauren to the final two instead of her. Ava tells Lauren that she sees Vince as a villain, and she hates him, saying Vince puts himself in bad situations, and then cries about it later. Lauren tells us she's ready to get some revenge on Vinny. We'll see about that. Keanu tells Morgan that he's down to target Lauren, which makes Morgan come back around to getting Lauren out. Ashley and Kelly talk, coming to some understanding where they could have a fair chance against each other in final two. Morgan is disturbed in the night. She springs awake. She's upset that Vince told her if she votes out Lauren, they can't be friends outside of the house. She feels he's protecting Lauren, who wants her out of the house. The conversation between them gets heated. They're arguing and everyone can hear them. Morgan wants Lauren out and is annoyed that Vince isn't becoming okay with it, and Vince is annoyed that she's going against her promise. They're getting nowhere and continuing with their conversation all night long. Lauren is patiently waiting to talk to Vince. Kelly even tells Vince not to keep her waiting, which annoys Morgan. Vince again assures Lauren that she's not going home, but Morgan is still stewing, and now Morgan and Ashley are plotting together against Lauren. Which brings us to the blockbuster, which is announced by the Mastermind in a competition titled Steal Power Orbs for the Mastermind so he could bring his new layer online. They need to run down and dig in their container, then run up the stairs and drop the ball into their tube. The first player to get 4 balls, or the player with the most balls after 4 minutes, will win their safety. They get started. You can't say Kelly lacks commitment, diving fully under her balls. Lauren gets a lead with her first ball first. Keanu and Kelly high-key suck at this. Lauren eats and leaves no crumbs, getting 4 balls and winning the blockbuster, while Kelly and Keanu got only 1. Lauren deserved a W after the week she's had. Lauren comes back skipping, and Julie tells the group she won the competition. Vince is relieved and emotional. His nightmare isn't coming true. Well, he'll be single when he gets home, but Lauren's staying. They don't give them time to strategize and get to speeches. Kelly says no hard feelings, do what's best for you. Keanu says the Block Party Alliance is getting split up and offers himself as a shield to the others. In the votes, Ava and Lauren vote to evict Keanu, and Morgan and Ashley vote to evict Kelly, which means there's a tie, a rare thrill, and Julie tells Vince he has to break the tie. He stands up there, saying he's gonna have to deal with the repercussions, and votes to evict Kelly. On the way out, Kelly announces that Vince had deals with her and her allies, and had hands in voting all of his allies out, and that for the rest of the season, he's gonna do what Morgan wants. When she leaves, the mastermind comes back, telling them it's double eviction night, and it's all gonna be about the mastermind. And Julie tells them the blockbuster's over. There will only be 2 nominees moving forward. Kelly's interview is fun. She's got the audience eating her up. She says she was evicted because Morgan gets everything she wants, and she knows part of the reason is because she's irritating. So we lose Kelly here, who I had little hope for preseason. She said in her interview she wouldn't be good at competitions, but she ended up being great at blockbusters, and won competitions that saved her from eviction in the first few weeks when she was a target, which caused a lot of Thursday night chaos in the process. As a character, she was a silly figure, doing random things, often being a bit nasty and mean to others, which was, in my opinion, fun. She'll be remembered for volunteering to go on the block, which at the time seemed really stupid, but she didn't go home when she volunteered, and for her weird behavior and hiding bugs. She never really finds her footing in the game and latches on to whoever's at the bottom, and through that is just a bottom feeder, scavenging for crumbs of strategy wherever she could find them, and for the most part was left out of the edit of the show. Even on her final week, she's barely on the program, so I'm glad she's out here, as she should have been an early boot, and I'm glad she's not filling space in a finalist spot. Players head to their HOH comp, Wretched Reactor. They need to roll orbs up their ramp to get them onto the reactor zone. The first player to land 5 orbs in the zone wins the HOH. They get started, Ashley, Morgan, and Keanu get to a lead, and Morgan's gamer ways come in handy as she quickly gets the feel of it and wins the HOH. After some strategizing, Morgan nominates Keanu and Lauren. No one is surprised. Getting to the veto comp, Master Find. Apparently the government has captured footage of the mastermind in the house, and they need to find him. The player with the most correct answers at the end will win. Finding the mastermind is so easy. I'm actually shocked when Ava gets a really easy one wrong. It comes down to a tie between Morgan and Keanu. They're asked how long in seconds the wall comp was. Morgan acts frazzled and guesses 120 seconds, 2 minutes for the wall comp. In my opinion, she clearly threw this to Keanu. She's even happy when Julie announces that Keanu won. At the veto meeting, Keanu saves himself with the veto, and Morgan replaces him with Ava. In their speeches, Ava gets emotional about being on the block with her friend and #1 ally, and Lauren seems to be saying goodbye. In the votes, Vince votes to evict Ava, but Ashley and Keanu evict Lauren, so Lauren is evicted by a vote of 2 to 1. Morgan consoles Vince with his love language, physical touch. Lauren's interview is pleasant. She gives Morgan props for getting her out and says Morgan could win the game. On Vince, she has no hard feelings, but I'm not buying it. Julie struggles to get answers out of Lauren, but we survive the interview. And we lose Lauren here, who had so much potential in general. She starts the game off being so indecisive, even about the first vote, and is so frustratingly indecisive about everything. There was a time when she was in such a good spot, so many allies. She was close with Jimmy, Riley, Catherine, Zach, Vince. They had the Bond Alliance that included Will, Adrian, Ava, and while she gets so much crap for being indecisive, her game also suffers from the decision she did make. On her HOH, nominating Adrian and Will, breaking up the Bond Alliance that they just made no sense at all. That alliance could have run the game. And when she saved Vince with the veto, in a spot where Vince wasn't even the target, she effed around and found out. And there's a direct chain of events from her saving Vince with that veto that leads to the rest of her allies going home, and to Vince nominating her, and then her own eviction. I thought she was going to start doing stuff, but never did. She didn't put any effort into getting to know half the players in the house, and didn't bring any entertainment to the show. With all that said, she's kind of likable, and while I think she's an awful reality TV casting choice, I think at home, in her job as a bridal consultant, she's probably amazing to work with. She's not on my wish list of people I'd like to see again in the near term, but maybe a challenge appearance, and also in a few years, if she becomes a bit more experienced in life, I could get an appetite for a 30-year-old, more mature and confident Lauren reappearing for another shot. Julie then brings out the unlocked guest, director James Gunn. This is a huge guest. He says he was a Lauren fan and he likes Keanu. He doesn't like Vince. Julie is flirting with James Gunn and will be doodling Julie Chen Gunn with hearts on her cards in the Uber home. She even tells James Gunn she's available in 2 weeks and says a man of tomorrow needs a woman of tomorrow, even showing him her sexy BB comic. I ship these two, not gonna lie. We start the episode with some unseen highlights from the double. After Morgan won HOH, Morgan tells Lauren that she's a pawn, and after a long hug with Vince, she tells Vince the same thing. Keeping her target ambiguous, she nominates Keanu and Lauren, but when Keanu wins the veto, Morgan tells Vince that Lauren's her target. He tries to whip up a second vote to save Lauren, but can't find it, so she's told to hit it. And now we're caught up. Morgan's thrilled to have Vince's full attention, and she's still committed to the judges with Vince and Ashley. Ava just lost her two allies in the double. Now Ashley's her only friend and ally left in the group. Vince tells us his target is Keanu, but Keanu is all about working with Vince and taking Vince to Final 3. Ashley sees Morgan as a threat and views working with Keanu as a way to get Morgan out of the game. So Ashley and Ava make a Final 3 with Keanu, and Ava and Ashley solidify a Final 2 named Will's Daughters. Even Vince admits to Ava that he'll lose the game against Keanu or Morgan, telling Ava they should go to the Final 2 together. Ava thinks Vinny the Lip is being a bullshit artist. The mastermind shows up on screen, telling them they'll be surprised with mayhem over the next few days, culminating in another sacrifice. Ashley says it's giving spooky. Ashley tells us if she sits next to Morgan in the end, she knows she's losing. She and Ava agree that Morgan has to go, and they head to the mastermind's secret sanctum. Players will use a sword to hold the mastermind's face against a disc. The last player standing will win the final 5 HOH. When the live feeds came on, I thought they were playing Pressure Cooker, but it's really just Janky's marshmallows in the dark. Ava's quickly eliminated, followed by Ashley. It all comes down to Keanu and Vince. Ava and Ashley are rooting for Keanu, and Keanu is loving being there with Vince as his captive audience, telling Vince that Keanu's mom has his umbilical cord as a keepsake. Keanu tells Vince he wants to win and target Morgan this week, and says that Vince voting for Morgan would give him a big move for his resume. But as he's talking about tacos, Keanu slips, giving Vince his 4th HOH of the season. Imagine how tired we are. Vince wants to make a big move with this HOH. Ava feels like she's about to be cooked, and Morgan is feeling good about Vince's win. Ava and Ashley go back to scheming with goals of getting Morgan on the block and evicted this week. Ava tells us that Vince is smart but disloyal to his allies, so she reminds Vince that everyone thinks Morgan controlled his game. And this campaign is continued by Keanu, who meets with Vince and tells Vince if he gets Morgan out this week, Vince could win Big Brother. But Vince brings all of this back to Morgan. They laugh about all of it. He thinks he has enough game to bring Morgan to the end and still have a shot. Vince tells Keanu he's not down to target Morgan, and Keanu gets so frustrated, like an audience member screaming at the screen, but in real life. And at the nomination ceremony in the sanctum, Vince has to put 2 voodoo dolls of his nominees on the altar. He nominates Keanu and Ava in a not so dramatic ceremony, which is made more apparent by the dramatic setting. This whole setup, the voodoo dolls, all for nothing to happen. Keanu wraps things up by telling us that Vince is still playing Morgan's game, and I agree, and hope he keeps doing it. Vince wants Keanu out, hoping to claim Keanu's eviction on his resume. I don't know what's more blank, Vince's Big Brother resume or his professional resume. The mastermind is still messing around with these players. Every time the bell tolls, they have to go to the sanctum to see what bullshit he's got in store. Keanu's still trying to talk to Vince and convince Vince he's playing Morgan's game. Keanu tells us that Vince is a spineless weasel, and if he loses Big Brother, he did it to himself. Morgan is thrilled that Keanu's on the block. Him getting out puts them one step closer to her ideal Final 3 of she, Vince, and Ashley. Ava and Ashley worry that a Keanu veto win would put them both on the block together, but they plot against Morgan. Ashley can win the veto and use it, forcing Vince to nominate Morgan and take the frontrunner out. The mastermind chimes in, telling them that the veto comp is right now. They'll have to put together a portrait of the mastermind's pet weasel Andy, who's missing his daddy. It's tiny veto. They need to use tweezers to stack tiny puzzle pieces. The first player to build the mastermind's portrait will win the veto. They get started. Keanu gets to an early lead. Ashley is still on board to win this and target Morgan, but good for Morgan, Ashley sucks at this. Morgan is shown struggling the least, similar to the last stacking comp where they barely showed her on screen because she was doing so much better than everyone. Vince almost wins this, but his stack falls, and Morgan eventually wins her 4th veto, safe for the 5th week in a row from comp wins. After the veto, Keanu's frustrated and admits that Rachel was right all along. Sounds like Vince has lost Keanu's jury vote completely, and Keanu once again tells Vince that he's a bad ally, and lets Vince know if he stays loyal to Morgan, he has no shot at winning this game. At night, Morgan and Vince are speaking in code. Basically, Vince is telling Morgan that he likes her, and she's shutting him down because he has a girlfriend, also potentially because she's not interested. The next day, it's Morgan's birthday, and the mastermind is for some reason treating them to a gift of videos from home. The messages are all sweet. Ava's boyfriend is there, and Vince's girlfriend is not there. Vince is upset that his girlfriend didn't send a video. He continues to deny to us that he and Morgan are doing anything more than friends, which is probably why they purposefully included a clip of Vince confessing his feelings in bed. He says he needs to win because he can't fathom losing and coming home being single. Oh, honey, that would never happen. You're gonna lose, go home, and be single, and have no job. Keanu has a decent pitch to Ashley, asking her to keep him because he'll help her to get Morgan out, and that they stand a fair chance against each other. She's receptive. At the veto meeting, Morgan decides not to use the tiny veto, which is so cute. The mastermind chimes in, telling them they only have 1 hour before the eviction, and they get to scrambling. Ava tells us she's just gonna chill out and let them vote out Keanu, but Keanu gets to work, asking Vince to save him if it's a tie, telling Vince that if he doesn't save Keanu, he will not have Keanu's jury vote. Keanu calls Vince the most untrustworthy person on the entire West Coast, and at the eviction, the mastermind reveals that the vote will be public. Ashley and Morgan will stick a needle in the voodoo doll of the player they'd like to evict. Morgan and Ashley both stab Keanu's doll. Now, what if voodoo dolls really worked? This man would be in bad shape. So we lose Keanu here in fifth place, who preseason I ranked 13th, feeling like he was all over the place in those interviews, and I do feel he held up to that through the whole season. All over the place. His job was listed as Dungeon Master, and we never saw much of that besides a few references. It would have been funny if he led the group in a game to see him in action, but we didn't. Not that there wasn't a lack of entertainment from him, he was involved in many arguments, usually with Rachel, but sometimes with others, like with Jimmy and Ava, where he said she had a prompt. The frenemy alliance with Rachel was the story of the season for me, and that was cut so short when Rachel went out how she did. We never got to see how it would have turned out. Would Keanu have been loyal or part of Rachel's demise? We'll never know. Strategy wise, he's god awful. He rode the bottom of my player rankings, constantly having bad reads in the game. He starts the game off being targeted by Vince and Jimmy, and Rachel and the girl step up to save him. He gets the opportunity to keep working with them and be on that side of the house, but he still chooses to take the hard route and work with the guys who he felt were loyal to him. But as Rachel repeatedly told him, the guys wanted nothing to do with him and wanted him out. So he puts himself in a bad spot time and time again, only helping to save himself in the beginning with competition wins, which extended his expiration date. But ultimately, he gets ousted yet again by trusting a man in Vince who he could not trust, which led to his demise. While I'm not a big fan of Keanu's as a game player due to his frustratingly bad reads, I think he's very funny. His DRs were memorable. When he puts on voices, they do tickle me. The Butler punishment was the highlight of his season. He leaned into it and camped it up, and he's someone I would love to see again on reality TV. Maybe Big Brother, but I don't need it. I'd love to see him on The Traitors, where his bad reads would be hilarious. But also on The Challenge, we weren't really able to see him show what he's made of in challenges. I need to see Keanu in a hall brawl yesterday. Julie's wearing a sexy black alligator skin cocktail dress and black heels. Julie is feeling herself tonight. The only thing this outfit's missing is a whip. She left Les handcuffed to the bed, like Gerald's game for this filming. They bring out Keanu for an exit interview, for which he's, in my opinion, a bit underdressed to speak with dominatrix Julie. No harness. He says his game was sabotaged, and again admits Rachel was right, and that he mistrusted Vince time and time again, calling that his biggest downfall. In goodbye messages, everyone's explaining their game to Keanu, trying to earn his jury vote, besides Ava, who just says YOLO. To hear me talk more about Keanu, check out my Wednesday video and my player rankings later. Back to the game, Ava, Ashley, and Morgan are competing in the Final Four HOH comp, where the show has Ashley reheating Mackenzie's nachos in this outfit. With Nutty Professor Vince hosting, in rounds, they'll roll the dice to get the right symbols facing up in their home space. The first player to 3 points wins HOH. Morgan tells us it's by her own design that she's facing the 2 weakest competitors, and that Keanu left. Keanu would have won this, by the way. Morgan gobbles this competition, but Ava's strategy is, as usual, to shout YOLO. Morgan gets 3 points before anyone else even gets one, and wins this HOH, making it to Final 3. Ava shrugs it off. Her body language is saying YOLO. Morgan proudly tells Vince that she's now won her safety for 6 rounds in a row, and Vince is starting to sweat Morgan as a threat to beat him in the end. Vince tells Ava he has doubts about Morgan keeping him safe. When Ava runs this back to Ashley, Ava says she has no sympathy for Vince, and Ava starts her campaign on Vince, telling him that Morgan will take Ashley to Final 2, and Vince tells Ava he could also turn on Morgan and take Ava to the Final 2. In her nominations, Morgan puts up Ava and Ashley, surprising no one, and complimenting both on their social games. The judges are already cheersing to their Final 3, but Ashley's still plotting in her mind against both Vince and Morgan. Moving on to the veto comp, where the mastermind is trying to get real cute sitting on that couch. Players need to rearrange photos to match the corresponding day the event occurred, but it's also kind of a slide puzzle. The first player to get it right wins the veto. They get started, and of course, Morgan is running her game board like the Navy, and she handily wins her 5th veto of the season. Morgan's excited to have saved herself and Vince with this veto win, but Ava's nervous that Vinny the Lip has her life in the game in his hands. Morgan and Vince celebrate with a big hug-a-rooney. Ashley opens Ava's drink that the show reveals has been sitting on her dresser for 50 days and has turned to mold. It spills all over Ashley's shirt. I would light that shirt on fire. In bed, Vince jokes to Morgan that he'd be running the game if she wasn't there, which hurts Morgan's feelings and continues to offend her, saying that Lauren's just as good as Morgan. So now Morgan is having some doubts about Vince. Ashley gets to work on Morgan, telling Morgan that Vince or Morgan winning final HOH would cut the other if they're smart and take Ashley, who they can easily beat. Morgan's very receptive. It's a pretty logical argument, and Morgan tells us she's at least considering cutting Vince. At night, Vince asks Morgan if she wants him out. She hesitates to answer, reminding him of his comment about Lauren that upset her, which takes us to present day. A live veto meeting. Morgan decides not to use her veto, keeping Vince safe and making him the sole vote to evict. Morgan got the memo and is dressed for the same party that Julie's going to. We get speeches. Ava calls her boyfriend her Italian sausage. She turns to Vince and says the only thing she can ask him to do is not contact her after this this show, Ashley is much nicer and diplomatic, telling Vince to do what's best and showers Ava with praise. Vince casts his vote to evict, unsurprisingly sending Ava packing. I was expecting Ava to go out in flames, but she just says peace out, brothers and sisters. In her interview, the audience is eating her up. Julie shows a clip of a house meeting Ava held before the show tonight, in which she exposes Vince, saying Vince has been telling her that he's keeping her, and tells Morgan that Vince has been telling Ava he'll cut Morgan at Final 3, which could cause some trouble in the game. Ava's sunflower is wilting. I think there's a Beauty and the Beast Rose type curse happening with this hat. Ava gives nothing in this interview. She's barely saying anything, but her personality in this interview is one we've never seen on the feeds or in the diary room. She's acting like someone who just stepped out of a cryogenic sleep on a planet they've never been on. I don't know how to explain it. So we say goodbye to Ava here, who preseason I said felt like the kind of player who makes it way too far and adds nothing to the game. And for the most part, I stand by it. She joins forces with Will early on. Being saved the first week greatly helped her, and she was always someone the house overall liked. I think because she didn't really talk game, so they didn't consider her someone to target, and through her lack of game talk, she was left out of major dramas, which put her in a power position in the pre-jury, where her vote was very important. And if she did speak up about the game, she was seen as impartial, which gave her influence. In my rankings, I ranked her first after the Adrian vote, where she convinced Zach and Vince to switch their votes, and she had her HOH, where she took a huge swing, nominating Zach, Vince, and Keanu. So with those big moves, I don't feel she's that bad of a player. She's actually a smart player who knows what's going on for the most part, but she's very passive, spending most of the season laying in bed. And while she seems like she wants to win the money, she's not very competitive, having an it is what it is mentality about the game that didn't serve her. It became clear that her sole objective was to win America's favorite player, constantly playing up her personality in a way that was honestly exhausting and a total front. While I feel she exceeded my very low expectations, I do hope we never see her again on TV, and especially that furry hat. Sorry to the Ava stans, we can agree to disagree on this one. This segment couldn't be more appropriately named because when she came on the screen, I screamed, "What is Julie wearing?" Let's break this down. Julie's wearing a crumbled, I don't know what this top is, a corset? Why does it look like a bra? At first, I was like, okay, she's wearing a dress, and then it zooms out and she's wearing pants, which was a big bummer, but then it zooms out more, and these pants have a giant, I want to say 8-inch cuff on the bottom. Why? And to add insult to injury, these pants have a train. Why in tarnation would you dress like this? Maybe Julie got a tablecloth stuck in her pants, like Ashley's toilet paper. I must move on. We pick back up where we left off. The final three are competing in part 1 of the final HOH. They're flying on drones, looking for the mastermind's new lair. The player who hangs on the longest will go straight to part 3. Morgan is seeking redemption for disappointing performance in the wall comp. Vince is getting sick when this thing is spinning, and it actually does look like a carnival ride from hell. Morgan has no trouble with this, and Ashley falls first, followed by Vince, giving Morgan the win in part 1. Vince is already whining like a baby about losing this round. We get to the jury roundtable, hosted by Trader's loser, Cody Calafiore. They reveal Ava was evicted by Morgan's comp wins and Vince's vote. The jury is looking for a well-rounded player who takes accountability. They respect Morgan for winning competitions and having good social game, but they knock her for often being paranoid. Rachel feels like Morgan played Vince's game. I was surprised they all feel Vince played a good game, but that he lied and made final twos unnecessarily. Kelly says he was either lying or crying. Will calls Vince messy, but Rachel motivates the jury not to be bitter. Rachel is Vince's biggest defender here. Ava praises Ashley for being loyal. Will and Rachel reveal that Ashley was a lawyer, so they already know, taking away from the big reveal for Ashley. They feel Ashley didn't make big moves she can claim. Back in the game for round 2, players are met with special guest Frankie Grande. Frankie says the last time he was there, a legend left the game. Then the mastermind interrupts, saying blah blah blah. They need to swing on their zipline to knock down 3 billboards, then solve puzzles of eliminated players. Once they do that, they can open an envelope with instructions to unmask the mastermind and save BB City. The first player to solve the code will move on to part 3 of the HOH competition. They get started, and they're both doing well on the zipline, kicking off their blocks. Vince finishes his first and gets to a lead. He furthers this lead on the face puzzles, which seems so easy. The envelope says that the passcode is the order that they left the game, but Vince thinks that it's the days they're evicted and continues to buzz in with the wrong answers. Vince is at this point screaming at his puzzle as Ashley gets her clue and starts working on hers. At first, Ashley thinks it's the days too, so she smartly rereads the clue and realizes what she's doing wrong, keeping her cool and fixing her answers, getting the answer right, but is her answer the order? Where Ashley's answers were the players' placings in the game, not the order. But she wins part 2. Vince is agitated and crashes out, having a fit about this. How are we supposed to witness this petulance and want him to succeed? They unmask the mastermind, who ends up being Dr. Will, and he's arrested, shouting that he was framed. After the competition, Vince continues his spiral. Morgan consoles him, but she's feeling like it's a good move to cut Vince. Meanwhile, Ashley celebrates, telling us she wants to cut Morgan, which brings us to part 3 of the HOH, called Perjury Duty. They'll get videos of the jurors making statements about the game, and guess which of their answers is a lie. The player with the most correct answers will win the final HOH. They get started. Morgan totally chokes and gets 3 questions wrong in a row, giving Ashley a big lead that makes them end the game early, which makes Ashley the final HOH of the season in a very dominant performance here. So Ashley gets to decide who to take to final two between Vince and Morgan. Ashley says she can't beat Morgan, and for that reason, she tearily evicts her. Morgan gives Vince one last big huggaroony, and Morgan goes to meet Julie. In her interview, Morgan is understanding of Ashley's decision. She says she would have taken Ashley to final two, and when asked about her relationship with Vince, she says they're best friends, and she's gonna be an impartial juror. So we lose Morgan here, who was my winner pick preseason. I was so excited when she said she was a gamer. It really worked on me. The second the feeds turn on, she's gaming hard, campaigning against Zay, so I was already worried early on. Sure, she wasn't telling them that she was a gamer, but she was also gaming so hard. When she was in the Triple Threat Alliance with Mickey and Jimmy, she was in a great spot in the game, but her lowest point was her part in the Mickey HOH in targeting Jimmy. I feel they were both being misguided and mean-spirited, and she's targeted soon after. But then she joins the judges and almost instantly becomes a fan favorite again, and starts winning competitions, which served her well. The alliance with Vince was a good idea, but the flirting between them was a lowlight of her time there. And there was the stuff with Zach and saving his toothbrush, which was weird. So while I think she's a great strategist and competitor, there are some character issues that I think she'll be able to reflect on and work on before we see her again. And I do think we'll see her again. I'd love to see her play again. I think she'd be great on the challenge or even the traders. She would have won if she hadn't lost. The jury come out all looking fabulous. Rachel surprisingly not in red, but looking royal. Rachel and Keanu are both hoping Vince is evicted, and Will and Rachel agree that anyone but Ashley would be nice to see coming in. They're gooped that Morgan shows up. Rachel has a look of pride in her face, and Rachel screams finding out that Ashley won the final HOH and evicted Morgan. So the jury questions the final two, a job interview, so to speak. Ashley's in her finest dress and Vince in his pajamas. Keanu accuses Vince of being emotionally manipulative. Vince defends himself, saying he was playing with self-preservation and apologizes. Rachel asks Ashley for her strategic moves. Ashley calls herself adaptable, referencing attaching herself to Morgan and Vince after Zach left. She takes credit for the formation of the Judges Alliance. Ashley's passionate and clear. She's filibustering. Julie cuts her off, but the jury gives her a round of applause for this answer. You know your answers are good when the jury is applauding. Kelly tells Vince he was lying and crying, asking if he was sincere. He says he was, but he's tripping all over his words, asking Kelly to repeat the question, failing his job interview. Will asks Ashley what her personal contributions were to the game. Ashley says once she hit Final 7, she knew she would be in the Final 2 because she was aligned with everyone in the house. Lauren asks Vince for 3 moves that he made that Morgan can't take credit for. He just starts rambling and rattling off things that he did, many of which also benefited Morgan. I zoned out during this answer. Ava asks Ashley why she should win over Vince. Ashley says she was loyal to her allies, saying she turned her enemies into allies, but he turned his allies into enemies. The stinger. Morgan asks Vince what got him to the end. He says he caused damage with his HOHs, but did damage control, and that even Kelly wanted to take him to Final 2. Kelly bursts out laughing at this. They make final speeches. Ashley says she was targeted since day 1 due to her shower, but she fought for herself to be safe. She says she's just like Elle Woods, and that she's really an attorney. Vince starts off saying he really is unemployed, that he applied for 10 years, won 4 HOHs, listing the types of competitions he won, saying he had to nominate 9 of the 17 cast members, and he put his blood, sweat, and tears into the game. Blood. The jurors cast their votes. Some of them are obvious, like Will saying his vote is for his little girl, which Julie scolds him for, and Morgan's, because we can see in her bag. Julie then welcomes the pre-jurors to the stage. They talk about Vince's 8 final 2s. Vince admits Morgan was his real number 1. Mickey and Jimmy feel like Morgan manipulated Mickey into targeting Jimmy, but they feel Morgan played a good game. Riley and Catherine are still together, and Julie is standing them. They give Riley the floor to talk about how much he loves Catherine. Nothing he said was really groundbreaking, which made this a weird addition to the show. They could have asked Catherine about her nose ring. They reveal Amy was the accomplice, which feels like it was 10 years ago. But who cares about this? We have important business to attend to. The mastermind is still in his lair, having just framed Dr. Will, and the mastermind reveals themselves as Mr. Spectacular Jesse, with his villain origin story being the coup d'etat, ruining his game, and Frankie Grande, who was the victim of the rewind twist, and Eric Stein, who was the victim of America's Player. So 3 masterminds, all of them victims of production's bullshit, which is exactly what I was talking about in my Big Brother is a Mess video. This made me mad. Firstly, the way none of us care who the mastermind was, but then the mastermind being the victims of production interference, coming together to assist in more production interference, make it make sense. Julie reveals the final votes. Morgan voted for Vince to win, and we see votes coming in for Ashley, Ava, Keanu, Lauren, Kelly, all for Ashley. Seeing Lauren not vote for Vince fixed something inside me. And by a vote of 6-1, Ashley is the winner of Big Brother 27, celebrated with a satisfying group hug with Ashley, Amy, and Rachel, which fixed another part of me. Julie has a karaoke microphone. She's about to do Wonderwall. Julie announces that Taylor won the unlocked pool, and Keanu, Rachel, and Will are the top 3 in America's Favorite, and Keanu is the winner of America's Favorite House Guest. I'm disappointed it's not Rachel, but whatever, let's wrap this up talking about our finalists. Starting with runner-up Vince, who at times was doing so well in the game. He had allies and 1 HOHs. I had him in first place in my rankings week 6, when he convinced indecisive Lauren to save him with with the veto, which was a feat that he never really owned, which in my opinion was his best game move. His HOHs weren't impressive. Amy had him pegged when she called him a weenie. He would just get pushed over by whoever wanted to boss him around, which he says is just like his real life. When he was pressured by Morgan to nominate Lauren and he went through with it, I said at the time that was the moment he lost Big Brother. While I do find his weeniness very insufferable, part of me feels like it's kind of sad how hard on himself he is. And I know he's gonna have a hard time outside of the house, seeing some of the fan opinions and finding out that he's single, so I don't want to rag on him any more than I need to. There was a lot of potential there, but I really don't want to see him again on my screen. Not in a house, not in a castle, not in a box, not with a fox, not on a boat, not with a goat. I do not want Green Beanie and Weenie. And our winner, Ashley, who I originally ranked second preseason. Remember when that commercial came out? We all thought Marion was Ashley. There was such excitement for Ashley coming into the premiere, and to find out she was on the block week one was such a disappointment. And for Showergate, which was so dumb. Vince was really trying to gaslight her about that too. She finds herself on the bottom for a few weeks in a trio with Amy and Rachel, and slowly over time crawls and scratches her way up the pecking order. But it wasn't just the shower. She would bother other players with things like not refilling the Brita, which had her name being consistently brought up and then talked down by other players. But there's a moment mid-game where she talks to the camera and tells us that she's playing dumb and gonna turn it around in the jury phase, and she impressively follows through and does exactly what she told us she was going to, throwing herself in any game chat that she can get into, telling harsh truths with confidence. She talked herself out of being evicted over Will, which was a huge task. She even convinced Morgan to take her to the final two, and after seeing this finale, I think Ashley beats Morgan. I find it cathartic that someone who was in it with Rachel from the beginning, who had a rocky pre-jury like Rachel and BB12, but wins the final HOH and the game like Rachel and BB13, would go on to bring it home, and that a season that was so dominated by powerful women would in the end be won by a woman. We got a good winner, and on this show, that puts a gold star next to the season when I look back at it. And Ashley and Rachel together on an all-winner season would be bliss. Well, so that concludes my full season recap of BB27. Looking back on it, this was the most fun season to recap I've done so far. There were twists and turns. While it was frustrating that some players who should have been early boots lasted longer than they should have, it made for an unpredictable season, which is always fun. The theme of Hotel Mystere was never fully baked. It seemed the true theme was more about the mastermind, who was more of a jigsaw character, and in the end was very much like Ghostface, so it would have been fun if the house was horror themed or dungeon themed and not murder mystery. I also wish they told us to try to figure out who the mastermind was, and I truly don't think they knew who the mastermind was until it was time for them to write something. There was a big dip in energy around the White Locust, which was the low of the season, but luckily it picked back up, which I give credit to the cast for, not the production. While this cast was entertaining and unhinged, I'd like the casting to lean more towards super fans and people who want to play the game. Where I feel they did a good job was the powers, throwing those 4 powers into the game that expired at jury. I don't think they were expecting them all to get used for the most part in the first few weeks. I wish they would have pumped some more powers into the game once they were used. I also wish they did America's vote at some point, as Rachel was at such a disadvantage. It would have been nice to throw she or whoever got the most votes, even if it was Keanu, a bone. Finally, the inclusion of Rachel was such a fun treat for us. This left me wanting more All-Stars. Give us a new era All-Star season. There's enough of a pool to make a cast at this point. So that's all I have for this season. Thank you again for following along with me. I'll be back next season to recap BB28. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. Until next time, you know where to find me. Bye.